Chapter 10:30. Vice Principal Pang's face turned red as he roared, "You're Tang Zheng, right? Not only did you disregard the law, but you also dared to talk back to me. As the vice principal, I can tell you right now that Yanqing University doesn't need students like you." Tang Zheng sneered, "Is that so?" "Yes. Yanqing University doesn't need students like you who disregard the law, disrespect, and violence. Just you wait to be expelled." Vice Principal Pang's voice became louder and louder. It was even a little shrill. It seemed that this was the only way to show off his power. "I also hit someone. Expel me too." Fang Shisha stepped forward and stood beside Tang Zheng. Her face was full of anger. Seeing her beloved being wronged, one could imagine the anger in her heart. "I also hit someone. Expel me if you dare. If you don't expel me, you're a coward." Yi Dingdong's small face was red from anger. She wanted nothing more than to punch Vice Principal Pang in the face. Vice Principal Pang was dazzled by the two beauties who stepped forward. They were too beautiful. If it were any other time, he would definitely hold their hands and teach them. However, Yi Dingdong's clamor put him in an awkward position. If he didn't expel them, he would be a coward. He didn't want to be called a coward on his first day as a new official. He was about to passionately reprimand them to let them know their mistakes. However, he didn't expect someone to come out of the crowd. The person's body was as tall as a mountain. He shouted angrily, "I also hit someone. Expel me too." Tang Zheng turned his head and looked. It was his second brother, Sinosaurus. Sinosaurus and the others were also welcoming the new students. When they heard the commotion, they ran over and happened to see this scene. Blood rushed to his head and he didn't hesitate to stand up for his brother. Vice Principal Pang looked at Sinosaurus in shock. "Don't be funny. You clearly squeezed in from the back. How could you be the one who hit someone?" Before he could figure out the situation, he saw two people squeezing in. Wang Shiji and Zhu Yang had a tacit understanding and said in unison, "I also hit someone, you should fire me too." Vice Principal Pang's face darkened. He finally understood that these people were in cahoots with Tang Zheng. They were here to kick up a fuss and embarrass him. Who was Vice Principal Pang? How could such a scene scare him? Therefore, he said in a deep voice, "All right, since you've admitted it, then wait for the school's punishment. Yanqing University doesn't need students like you." As soon as his voice fell, a few more people squeezed in, but they were all beautiful girls. Each of them was like a fearless warrior, standing behind Tang Zheng without hesitation, and said in a loud and resonant voice, "I also hit people, you should fire me too." Tang Zheng looked at them gratefully. They were Yi Dingdong's roommates. The few of them nodded encouragingly at Tang Zheng. His actions today had won their respect and recognition. Vice Principal Pang was at a loss. Just who was this brat? Why did so many people stand out for him? These people must be in cahoots. That's why they're so united. If it was anyone else, they would definitely admit defeat. But I've seen all sorts of storms. You guys are too inexperienced to play such tricks in front of me. Vice Principal Pang snorted in disdain. "All right, since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wishes." Vice Principal Pang roared majestically. He felt as if he was an ancient emperor who ruled over the life and death of others. It felt great. The other students looked at each other with red eyes. Even the girls stood out for injustice. Could it be that they, as grown men, were not as brave as the girls? The students clenched their fists. Suddenly, a person took a few steps forward and stood behind Tang Zheng. He said fearlessly, "I also hit people, you should fire me too." Vice Principal Pang was stunned. He stared at the fearless fellow with a murderous gaze and said in his heart, "I'll fulfill your wishes." But before he could say anything, he saw students one by one walk behind Tang Zheng, loudly shouting, "I also hit people, you should also expel me." The crowd was stirred up, and their voices rose and fell one after another. This was the most sincere expression of emotion as a student, an instinctive support, but often many people would scoff at it and disdain it. But seeing hundreds of people working together to support Tang Zheng, one would know who was right and who was wrong, and what was the will of the people. When the new students reported in, there were many parents accompanying them. When they saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel excited. It was as if they had returned to their youthful days. The edges and corners that had been worn away by life over the years seemed to have grown back. With a red face, they said to their children, "Do you see? This is the spirit of the university. Learn from your seniors." Many of the new students were boiling with passion. They threw down their suitcases and rushed behind Tang Zheng. They shouted, "I also hit people, you should fire me too." When the parents saw their children's actions, they didn't blame them. Instead, they revealed gratified expressions. Most Hua people had such genes and blood in their bones. They just needed an opportunity to trigger it. There was no doubt that this accidental incident had become a trigger, arousing their long-hidden hot blood. Vice Principal Pang was dumbfounded. He looked at the scene in disbelief. He never expected the students to be so united. This kind of strength made his heart tremble. He felt a long-lost fear. However, he immediately suppressed this absurd thought. His face darkened, and he thought to himself, fanning the flames, "These students can't be allowed to stay. The law doesn't punish the majority of the people. As long as I tell them the pros and cons, these people will naturally know to be afraid." But he couldn't see the people behind him. His voice couldn't be heard. Suddenly, he had an idea. Suddenly, he saw the Mercedes-Benz and quickly climbed up to the roof of the car. Looking down at the crowd, he waved his hand and shouted, "Quiet, everyone, be quiet. Listen to me. I know that most of you are good students. Don't be fooled by a bad student. This is irresponsible to yourself and to your parents. Everyone, disperse, disperse. We were not bewitched by others. We have our own judgment and sense of right and wrong. We are doing this to be responsible for ourselves and our parents." Someone refuted loudly, "That's right. I make my own decisions. It's not up to you to tell me what to do. Get lost. Yenqing University doesn't need a leader like you. That's right. This kind of leader is the shame of Yenqing University. He's helping outsiders to suppress his own students. Shameless." Vice Principal Pang panicked when he heard the complaints. Things seemed to be out of his control. "What right do you have to be so high and mighty? What right do you have to tell us what to do? You're nothing. You don't have the right." The students were even angrier when they saw him looking down at them. Suddenly, a loud and clear voice sounded. "Rise up, people who don't want to be slaves." The voice ignited everyone's emotions. It was as if they had returned to the Hua era. Everyone's eyes were red. They looked at Vice Principal Pang as if he was an invader. "Rise up! Rise up! Rise up! We're united. Braving the enemy's gunfire. Advance! 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 Advance!" The voice seemed to come from the chest and heart. It was filled with endless power. It made people's blood boil and tears filled their eyes. Every time the last 3 lines of advance was sung, all the students took a step forward. The uniform footsteps were like the sound of iron hooves, trampling on Vice Principal Pang's heart, making his heartstrings tremble and his face turn pale. The Korean people were scared out of their wits. The overwhelming momentum and the loud and clear voice made them see the spirit of the Hua people. It was the soul of the Hua people. Park Shahoon didn't have time to care about his pain. He quickly hid in the car and didn't dare to show his face. The arrogance he had just now was gone. What was left was deep shock and fear. The few of them huddled together and looked at each other while trembling. Vice Principal Pang's face turned pale. He didn't expect the students in China to be so powerful. Listening to the deafening voice, he felt as if thousands of knives were falling on his head. He suddenly had an ominous feeling. It seemed that things weren't as simple as he thought. Looking at the high and mighty Vice Principal Pang, the students' emotions once again reached a peak. One of them yelled, "You're standing so high up. Do you think you're so high and mighty? And those Korean people, do you think everything will be fine after they hide in the car? Smash the car and drag them out." Everyone echoed, "Yes, smash their car and drag them out. Let's see how they're going to act all high and mighty." Hundreds of people rushed toward the 2 luxury cars. Bang! Everyone picked up their tools and smashed them on the car. The glass shattered and the car was dented. It looked like the surface of the moon. Vice Principal Pang stood on the roof of the car. He was still in shock. He felt like he was a small boat in the middle of the ocean that could be overturned by the waves at any time. At this time, he didn't have the energy to rebuke. Even the security guards were scared. They kept retreating and didn't dare to stop them. Vice Principal Pang scrambled down from the roof and hid in the security guard's encirclement. He trembled in anger and fear as he watched the scene. "Come out. Are you a coward?" Hiding in the car. Park Shahoon and the rest hid in the car. They didn't dare to come out. "If you don't want to come out, then drag them out and smash the car door." Bang, bang, bang. The sound of the car door knocking was like knocking on their hearts. They were scared to the extreme and huddled together. Without a doubt, this would be a nightmare that would follow them for the rest of their lives. "Let me do it." Chapter 1031. Park Shahoon and the rest were dragged out of the car. Then, huge fists rained down on them. They only had time to clench their fists and huddle together. They were no longer as arrogant as before. Seeing this, Vice Principal Pang was so scared that he shouted, "Run!" He tried to leave this place under the protection of the security guards. However, the eyes of the crowd were sharp. Immediately, someone shouted, "Don't let him escape." Sinosaurus dashed forward and pushed the security guards away. He grabbed Vice Principal Pang's collar and flung him back. He immediately fell into the sea of people. "Ah!" Screams were heard immediately. *MBR** Tang Zheng did not expect things to turn out this way, but he did not stop them immediately. They asked for it. If they had not angered the crowd, they would not have ended up like this. "Stop hitting them, stop hitting them." The commotion finally attracted the attention of the principal. He brought a group of security guards and stopped them from afar. The students were still in awe of the principal. They stopped after a few more punches. They were rescued from the encirclement in a sorry state. Park Shahoon's face was bruised and bruised. He no longer looked like a celebrity. Vice Principal Pang also took a lot of punches. His face was swollen like a pig's. The principal almost could not recognize him. The principal did not question them like the vice principal. Instead, he tried to understand the cause and effect of the incident. He knew that his students were not thugs. There must be a reason for this. After knowing the cause and effect of the incident, the principal glared at Vice Principal Pang fiercely. Then, he comforted the students gently. Finally, he left with the few of them, leaving behind the 2 wrecked cars. The students immediately cheered as if they had won a big battle. Recalling the scene just now, everyone's blood was still boiling. Everyone's gaze towards Tang Zheng became more and more complicated. He was the catalyst for this matter, and if he was not the first to stand out, it would not have stirred up everyone's emotions and caused them to stand out one after another. Everyone gradually realized that unity was strength, and the reactionaries were paper tigers. As long as everyone was united, they could crush them in minutes. Vice Principal Pang walked away, relieved that he had survived. He sucked in a breath of cold air and said fiercely, "Principal, we must arrest that Tang Zheng. He's the instigator. A black sheep like him can't be allowed to stay in the school. Otherwise, he'll be a big disaster for our school. He's a ticking time bomb that can explode at any time." Vice Principal Pang talked non-stop, as if he was going to list Tang Zheng's heinous crimes. He shouted himself hoarse, exaggerating as much as he could. "That's enough," the principal shouted, his face frosty. This incident had caused a huge uproar. Furthermore, it happened during the welcoming ceremony of the new students. With so many parents present, the impact was extremely bad. He had just suppressed the anger in his heart, but that didn't mean that he wasn't angry. This was the first time such a situation had happened in the 100 years since the founding of the school. It was a disgrace to the school. Looking at the pig-headed Vice Principal Pang, he couldn't help but feel regret. He should have resisted the pressure from the higher-ups and rejected this *T-stirrer. He hadn't been in office for long, yet he had already caused such a thing. He really didn't know if he was an idiot or not. Seeing that the principal didn't say a word, Vice Principal Pang was angry and resentful. He continued, "Principal, we can't just let this go. I know that your words of comfort just now were just a temporary measure. Let's discuss the next step. We must teach these lawless students a lesson. Those leaders must be caught and punished by law. We must make an example out of them and teach them a good lesson. The principal finally stopped and looked at Vice Principal Pang with an unkind expression. What do you want? Expel Tang Zheng and punish the rest of the black sheep. Expel? Ha ha. The principal laughed mockingly. Vice Principal Pang was confused by this laugh. He asked, "What do you think, Principal? I spent a lot of effort to get Tang Zheng here, and you want to expel him with just a few words? Are you out of your mind?" Then again, the principal was shrewd and naturally wouldn't be so blunt. Thus, he faintly said, "You don't have to worry about this matter. Furthermore, that Park Si-hoon is too lacking. He didn't even ask about it after bumping into someone. His arrogance will affect the reputation of our Yenqing University. Principal, I spent a lot of effort to get him here. He has a huge influence. Furthermore, this matter must be a misunderstanding. He's actually a gentle and humble person." Vice Principal Pang was shocked and immediately tried to defend himself. The principal briefly hesitated before he glanced at Vice Principal Pang. "Don't do it again. If he does something bad again, then our school will not welcome a black sheep like him." Ah! Vice Principal Pang was dumbfounded. Why was the principal so strict? Wasn't this just throwing his face? But after all, they were the principal and vice principal. Even if it was throwing his face, there was nothing he could say. Thus, he could only grit his teeth and swallow it. Vice Principal Pang resentfully left. Looking at his departing figure, the principal dryly laughed. This overseas returnee really doesn't know anything about the situation in the country. Who is Tang Zheng? Is he someone you can afford to offend? Tang Zheng's emotions calmed down. On the other hand, his friends were in high spirits as they chatted among themselves. They came to a restaurant outside the school in high spirits. "All-san, we beat up those Koreans and Vice Principal Pang. Will they be fine?" Wang Shiji worriedly asked. Sinosaurus's coarse voice was the first to speak. "Boss, you're worrying for nothing. Who's All-san? Those Koreans want to go against All-san? Dream on." Ju Yang nodded his head in agreement. "You guys don't have to worry. The law can't punish the masses. Furthermore, they were the ones in the wrong, so it's impossible for them to trigger us. Actually, today's battle was really satisfying. Yes, it's 2F** King satisfying. I've long disliked that group of sissies. Men should be more masculine. Now, all the girls in the country like the sissy Xiaobai's face. It's completely distorted aesthetics." Sinosaurus stretched his arms and displayed a very manly action, feeling indignant. The other girls also nodded in agreement. Men still have to be more manly. Haha, this is a good young woman with good taste. I really didn't make friends with you guys in vain. Sinosaurus laughed loudly. This is a world that looks at faces. Even if you don't like sissies, you're too ugly. A few bad friends immediately attacked. Sinosaurus didn't mind. You guys are just jealous. I already have a girlfriend, so I'm not afraid of you guys attacking me. After saying that, he hugged his girlfriend with a complacent look on his face. All three, we were shocked when we heard that you weren't going to school anymore. Now that you're back, our dorm mates can be together again. Wang Shiji changed the topic. Tang Zheng gave his roommates a deep look. He had already imparted the cultivation method to them, allowing them to benefit a lot. Even though they were not as fast as Fang Shisha and the others, they still had a small harvest. It was clear that they did not stop cultivating during the summer vacation. All three definitely can't bear to part with us, right? Sinosaurus said. Tang Zheng nodded his head and said with a smile, "Yes, the school is a peaceful harbor. Actually, school life is really not bad. I'll try to stay in school for a while longer." Ju Yang said, "All three is a busy person. Anyway, when you have nothing to do, just come back and see us brothers." "That's for sure." "Oh right, have you guys heard? Goddess Tang Linga is coming to Beijing for a concert." Sinosaurus suddenly lowered his voice and winked. "Really?" Wang Shiji was shocked and full of interest. Tang Linga is too beautiful, and her singing is also very good. Although she hasn't been in the industry for long, she already has a lot of fans. I'm afraid the concert tickets must be very expensive. After saying that, his expression darkened. His family condition was the worst in the dorm, so he usually scrimped and saved. Naturally, he didn't have any money left to watch the concert. Tang Zheng was stunned for a moment. Linga's popularity was already so high. Even his roommates had become her fans. Sigh, I asked around earlier. The tickets for Tang Linga's concert are very popular. Many people in our school were the first to buy tickets online, but later on, there were no tickets to buy at all. I heard that they could only buy tickets at a high price. Sinosaurus said with a face of disappointment. Ju Yang thought for a while and said, I'll think of a way to see if I can get a few tickets, but I don't dare to make any guarantees. We want to see it too. The other girls joined in the fun. There are so many beautiful girls at the concert. We can't let you boys go alone. Otherwise, those girls will be too dangerous. Ju Yang had a difficult expression on his face. Now that the tickets are so tight, I can't guarantee that I can get so many tickets. All three, are you going? Sinosaurus asked. Speaking of which, you and Tang Linga are both surnamed Tang. 500 years ago, you were even a family. Yi Dingdang and Fang Shusha looked at each other. Yi Dingdang was about to speak, but was stopped by Fang Shusha with her eyes. The relationship between Tang Zheng and Tang Linga was not known to many people, so there was no need to make it public. Yi Dingdang swallowed her words. Tang Zheng coughed dryly and said, I'll think of a way. The others' eyes lit up as they asked, all three, you have a way? Maybe, I'll do my best. Tang Zheng did not know if there were still tickets for the concert, so he could only call Linga later to ask. Haha, that's great. All three's methods are wild, so he definitely has a way. The excitement of the few of them was beyond words. All three, let me tell you, Tang Linga is very beautiful, just like Ding Dang and Shusha. They are all great beauties, just different types. Sinosaurus's eyes lit up as he introduced, aren't we great beauties too? The other girls glared at him, scaring Sinosaurus so much that he shrank his neck and quickly tried to salvage the situation. Of course you're beautiful, you're like fairies descending to the mortal world. Mph, these words really go against my heart. The few of them rolled their eyes. After lunch, the few of them immediately threw themselves into the work of welcoming the new students. Tang Zheng attracted the attention of countless people. Many people pointed at him from afar or gave him a thumbs up. Among them, there was no lack of new female students who had witnessed the scene. They frequently cast flirtatious glances at Tang Zheng. Ding ling ling. Chapter 1032. It was Du Chifeng who called him. Mr. Du, what's the matter? Hearing Du Chifeng's anxious voice, Tang Zheng went straight to the point. Mr. Tang, I wouldn't have bothered you if it wasn't so urgent, Du Chifeng said in fear and trepidation. Tang Zheng nodded secretly and asked, the King of Medicine should have gone to your house. How is your wife? That's why I'm calling. Alas, I can't explain it clearly in a few words. Let the senior King of Medicine explain it to you. Du Chifeng sighed and said wearily. Master. The King of Medicine's voice came. Tang Zheng had been used to this cheap apprentice's name. He asked, King of Medicine, what's the problem? Master, Mrs. Du's condition is very strange. I've controlled her condition after taking medicine, but it flared up again the next day, and then it became more and more serious. The medicine didn't work at all. The King of Medicine's voice was a little low. He was very interested in difficult and complicated diseases, and he had conquered many difficult and complicated diseases. However, the situation this time made him a little confused, so he had to call Tang Zheng for help. Oh! Tang Zheng's head sank. If the King of Medicine couldn't do anything, then what kind of strange disease did Mrs. Du have? Master, I don't know what to do. Can you come here? The King of Medicine found it difficult to speak, and he was a little ashamed. Hearing this, Tang Zheng's curiosity was aroused. He asked, my treatment skills are not as good as yours. If you can't do anything, I may not be able to do anything. Master. Madame Du doesn't seem to be sick. The Medicine King stuttered, hesitating to speak. Tang Zheng moved his head and frowned. He asked, if she doesn't seem to be sick, then what is it? I don't know, but it's a little similar to the folklore about being possessed by evil spirits. I'm not sure. After all, there's no scientific basis for this kind of thing, and I've never seen it before. The King of Medicine's voice also lowered, as if he was not confident in his judgment. Tang Zheng was a cultivator. He knew very well that not everything in the world could be explained by current scientific knowledge. Being possessed by evil spirits was not something that was fabricated out of thin air. The phone was transferred to Du Chifeng again. Du Chifeng anxiously begged, "Young Master Tang, I know this is too much, but for the sake of my wife's life, I really beg you. You are my last hope." Tang Zheng had thought that the King of Medicine would be able to cure him, but now it seemed that he was too optimistic. Moreover, Du Chifeng had helped him before, so he couldn't stay out of this matter no matter what. Now that school had just started, there was not much to do, so he could take the opportunity to go to Du Chifeng's house. "Okay, send me the detailed address. I'll be there today." Du Chifeng was overjoyed and said gratefully, "Thank you, young Master Tang. Thank you so much. I'll book a plane ticket for you right away." "You don't have to book a plane ticket. I have a way to get there." Tang Zheng declined Du Chifeng's kindness. Since he could fly freely on his sword, he realized more and more the convenience of flying on his sword. It was faster than taking a plane, and he didn't have to wait for a plane. He could stop and go as he pleased. Du Chifeng didn't get to the bottom of it and quickly told him the address. His house was in Shanghai, which was not too far from Beijing. It would take nearly 2 hours by plane. Tang Zheng estimated that he could get there in more than an hour. He didn't leave in a hurry, but dialed Ling Er's phone first. The girl was very excited when she received the call from Tang Zheng. She jumped up and said, "Master, you finally called Ling Er. Ling Er, are you tired from the concert rehearsals?" Tang Zheng asked with concern. "I'm tired, but after receiving Master's call, Ling Er is not tired at all. I'm full of energy again, hey." Ling Er said excitedly. "If you're tired, then rest. Don't tire yourself out, okay?" Yes, Ling Er knows." "Ling Er, do you still have tickets for your concert?" "Tickets? I don't know. I'll ask." After saying that, her voice came from the phone, "Sister Ariamai, do you still have tickets for my concert?" "My lady, the tickets for your concert are selling like hotcakes. The tickets online have long been sold out." Ari-Mi said happily. Ling Er's mouth flattened and said, "Is there no other way? Do you have a friend who needs tickets?" "Master does." Ari-Mi quivered and quickly said, "Yes, of course. What a joke. If her boss doesn't have tickets, then she doesn't need to work anymore." Ling Er beamed with joy, "Thank you, Sister Ari-Mi Master, I still have tickets." The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth raised as he gave a knowing smile and said, "I heard it. Just remember to leave me a few. When the time comes, I will go to your concert." "Really?" Ling Er was surprised and happy. "Master, don't worry. Ling Er will practice harder. I won't disappoint Master." Tang Zheng said a few more words of concern and hung up the phone. He said goodbye to his family and went to the suburbs. He flew to Shanghai on his sword. After passing through the thick clouds, Shanghai was right below him. He landed in the suburbs. He took a taxi and went straight to Du Chifeng's house. This was a seaside villa area. The scenery was very charming. When Du Chifeng received Tang Zheng's call, he was very surprised because it had only been an hour since he called. Even a plane wouldn't be that fast. Could it be that Tang Zheng was already here? When he saw Tang Zheng standing in front of him alive, he couldn't help but feel deeply shocked. He couldn't believe his eyes and asked, "Young Master Tang, how did you get here so quickly?" Tang Zheng didn't answer and asked, "Where is the patient?" Du Chifeng woke up from his dream and felt a little more confident. Tang Zheng's methods were more powerful than he thought. Then wouldn't his wife have a greater chance of being saved? "Young Master Tang, please come with me." Du Chifeng led Tang Zheng into the villa area and to his house. The King of Medicine was already waiting at the door. He greeted him from a distance, grabbed Tang Zheng's hand, shook it a few times excitedly, and said, "Master, you're finally here. It's good that you're here. Looking at the King of Medicine's excited look and the two words master that came out of his mouth, Du Chifeng thought that he was dreaming. Although he was mentally prepared when he called before, he still couldn't hide the shock in his heart when he saw this scene with his own eyes. This was mainly because the King of Medicine's position in the apricot forest was too high. No one could surpass him. Now seeing him call Tang Jing master sincerely, no matter who it was, they would have the same feeling in their hearts. Thank you for your hard work. Tang Jing nodded to the King of Medicine. He personally contacted the King of Medicine some time ago and told him about Du Chifeng. That was why he came to Shanghai. Otherwise, with Du Chifeng's reputation, he couldn't even see the King of Medicine. It's not hard, it's not hard. The King of Medicine quickly shook his head and said bitterly, I'm ashamed. I originally thought that the medicine would cure the disease, but I didn't expect it to be so different from what I imagined. Until now, I still haven't determined what disease she has. This was a situation he had never encountered before. Naturally, he was very distressed. Let's go see the patient first. Tang Zheng recalled that Qin Baishan's wife had been possessed by the evil spirit in the Millennium Blood Jade, so he wasn't too worried. Young Master Tang, King of Medicine, please come in. Du Chifeng came to his senses and quickly opened the door. He respectfully invited them in and went straight to his wife's room. After pushing the door and entering, Tang Zheng saw a person standing in front of the windowsill. When she heard the sound, she turned her head. It was the face of a middle-aged woman. She was well-maintained and full of charm. She glanced at Tang Zheng lightly and said to Du Chifeng, Chifeng, who is this? Tang Zheng frowned. This person looked no different from a normal person. She didn't seem to be possessed. Let me introduce you. This is young Master Tang, and this is my wife. Du Chifeng quickly introduced them. Tang Zheng nodded slightly. Mrs. Du, nice to meet you. Madame Du responded politely. Tang Zheng glanced at Mrs. Du suspiciously, but still couldn't find any clues. He couldn't help but look at Du Chifeng and the King of Medicine. Mrs. Du, you should rest first. Du Chifeng closed the door and whispered to Tang Zheng, young Master Tang, when she's not ill, she's no different from a normal person. Once she's ill. His face became a little pale and he glanced at the King of Medicine. Senior King of Medicine has seen it. It's really strange. What kind of evil technique is this? Du Chifeng thought for a while and organized his words. It's as if she's a different person. It's a strange feeling. I've lived with her for decades, so I know it very well. I've never had that strange feeling, except when she's ill. The King of Medicine also nodded. I thought it was a split personality, but later it was confirmed that it wasn't. That's why I suspect that she's possessed. Du Chifeng's face was pale and he asked, young Master Tang, is there any way? Tang Zheng didn't express his opinion, but asked, when will she be ill? At night. Tang Zheng looked out of the window. It was still a few hours away from night. It seemed that they had to wait. Can I check now? Yes, thank you so much, young Master Tang. Du Chifeng said excitedly. They entered the room again. Mrs. Du was still standing quietly in front of the window, overlooking the blue sea in the distance. Mrs. Du, please sit down. Let me feel your pulse. Tang Zheng said. Mrs. Du turned around and said calmly, sorry to trouble you. Tang Zheng deeply looked at her, 2 fingers pressed down on her wrist. Her pulse was very strong, but Tang Zheng knew very little about the pulse, so he could not determine if there was a problem, so he urged his true qi, and a trace of true qi flowed from her wrist, along her meridians, into her body. Now Tang Zheng's control of genuine qi had reached the peak, so he didn't have to worry that the genuine qi would hurt the patient as before. Even the patient herself wouldn't notice anything strange with the trace of genuine qi. This was a big advantage of his increasingly excellent skills. Seeing him feel her pulse, Du Chifeng's heart was in his throat. He didn't know what the result would be. Chapter 1033. Tang Zheng let go of his hand, his eyebrows tightly knitted together. Mrs. Du looked at him with a bitter smile and said, young Master Tang, is there any cure for my illness? Tang Zheng stared at her and shook his head slightly. It's too early to say. He found that the vitality in her body was very weak, but he couldn't find the root of the illness. A touch of disappointment flashed in Du Chifeng's eyes. Young Master Tang, please go to rest first. We'll try again in the evening. They left the room. Tang Zheng and the King of Medicine went back to the room. The King of Medicine asked curiously, Master, did you find anything? Tang Zheng shook his head. The King of Medicine's face became strange. Even Tang Zheng didn't find anything. This illness was really strange. Night fell. They had dinner and waited for the moment when Mrs. Du had an attack. Tang Zheng sat opposite her and didn't miss any chance to observe. The moonlight shone on the bed and fell on Mrs. Du's body. Suddenly, a strange scene happened. A touch of darkness flashed in Mrs. Du's eyes. Her breath suddenly changed and became very cold and horrible. Her face was ferocious. Well, her illness seems to have changed. The King of Medicine exclaimed. Why do you say that? She used to tremble all over when she had an attack, as if she had epilepsy. But this time she seemed very calm. Except for the change in her complexion and breath, there were no other symptoms. The King of Medicine said, puzzled. Tang Zheng shook his head. I'm afraid this is a sign that her illness is getting worse. Mrs. Du, let me feel your pulse again. Whoosh. Seeing Tang Zheng's hand reaching out, Mrs. Du suddenly stepped back and dodged. Her reaction was so fast that even Tang Zheng didn't expect it. It didn't match her weak appearance at all. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a bright light as he stared at her. Du Chifeng hurried to persuade her, Mrs. Du, let young Master Tang feel your pulse and treat you. Bang! Once he finished his words, Du Chifeng was pushed away by Madame Du's palm. Du Chifeng's tall and sturdy body flew out like a piece of paper and heavily hit against the wall. Madam, you. Du Chifeng clutched his chest and gasped for breath, looking at his madam in disbelief. Madame Du's eyes flashed with a cold light as she coldly glanced at Du Chifeng. Then, she stared at Tang Zheng with an unkind expression. Her voice changed quite a bit as it became the voice of another woman. It was very sharp and gave people a feeling of fear. Who are you? Tang Zheng stared at her and asked, Who are you? You don't have the right to ask for my name. Madame Du said arrogantly. Du Chifeng and the King of Medicine were dumbfounded when they heard the conversation between the two. It was as if they were two completely different people. Madam, what's wrong with you? Du Chifeng turned pale with fright. Ignoring the pain, he threw himself at Madame Du. Tang Zheng hurriedly stopped him and advised, Mr. Du, calm down. Let me deal with her. The King of Medicine was dumbfounded and said resentfully, possessed. She really is possessed. It is her good fortune that I am possessing her body. What do you ignorant people know? Madame Du was proud of herself and her entire body was exuding evil energy. Let me catch you first. Tang Zheng reached out his big hand and rushed to her. Madame Du flew back, tiptoed on the wall, flipped in the air, and threw herself at Tang Zheng. Bang, bang, bang. In a flash, the two exchanged several moves. However, Tang Zheng's fighting ability was much stronger. Madame Du had a strong momentum at first, but in the blink of an eye, she could only retreat. Bang! Tang Zheng put one hand on her shoulder and immediately restrained her. She tried to resist and screamed. Tang Zheng was unmoved. He activated his true qi and immediately sent it into her body. A cold and ruthless aura instantly came back from his true qi. His eyes lit up. He thought, I finally found you. It turned out that there was a soul hidden in Madame Du's body. It was very hidden during the day, and even Tang Zheng couldn't find it. But at night, when the yin qi was strong, she would show up. Tang Zheng had seen Tian Chanzi do the possession and rebirth with his own eyes. However, he possessed a dead body, while this guy in front of him came for a living person. There was a world of difference between the two actions. This kind of forceful possession of another person's body was very bad. Tang Zheng couldn't do anything about it. Moreover, there were so few cultivators today. It was rare to find someone who had the ability to possess and rebirth. This was because, according to the Heaven Monk, one had to be above the nascent soul stage in order to be able to possess a body and be reborn. Furthermore, there were very few people above the nascent soul stage in this world, so who was this person? He had to find out. Who are you? How dare you be so rude to me? Madame Du screamed at the top of her voice. She stared at Tang Zheng angrily, as if she wanted to eat him alive. Tang Zheng wasn't afraid at all. He activated his genuine qi and immediately found the culprit in Madame Du's brain. This soul was hidden in the depth of her brain. It was a cloud of black gas. He could vaguely see a ferocious face hidden in the black gas. The ferocious face was opening its mouth and roaring. It seemed that it wanted to scare Tang Zheng away. "Who are you?" Tang Zheng asked. "You are not qualified to know my name." "Really? Then I'll destroy your soul." Tang Zheng used his genuine qi to stab the cloud of black gas like a sword. The other party immediately shrank back, but it didn't help. Her voice became more and more shrill, as if she was suffering endless pain. Seeing this scene, Du Chifeng's heart trembled. He wanted to persuade her, but was stopped by the King of Medicine in time. "Director Du, if you want to save your wife, don't disturb my master." Du Chifeng was resentful. He was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, spinning around in circles. I'll talk." Mrs. Du seemed to be unable to endure the torture and finally compromised. "I escaped from the prehistoric heavenly tomb." Prehistoric heavenly tomb? Tang Zheng was shocked. What does this have to do with the prehistoric heavenly tomb? After the restrictions of the prehistoric heavenly tomb were completely broken, many of the creatures or magic treasure that were imprisoned in the prehistoric heavenly tomb took the opportunity to leave that damned place and regain their freedom. What? Tang Zheng was shocked. He was actually one of the people who knew about this matter. Back then, in order to regain his freedom, the 100 Transformations Star-Lord had broken through the restrictions of the Buzhou Mountain, which was equivalent to breaking through all the restrictions of the prehistoric heavenly tomb. That was why the Thundercloud Beast was able to leave the prehistoric heavenly tomb as it pleased. However, the side effect was that without the restrictions, any living being could leave the prehistoric heavenly tomb. Back then, he, Tian Chanzi and the others had personally seen tens of thousands of rays of light soaring into the sky. Tian Chanzi had once said that those rays of light were countless magic treasure or yin generals. In any case, they were living beings imprisoned in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. The people buried in the prehistoric heavenly tomb were all experts from the ancient era. Due to that restriction, the souls of these people did not enter the cycle of reincarnation, but were instead imprisoned in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. After tens of thousands of years, these souls interacted with the yin qi, and in the end, many of them became yin generals. They lost their nature and became bloodthirsty people. Back then, Tang Zheng had met this kind of yin general. Other than that, there were also magic treasures. The mountain-shattering meteor hammer that Sinosaurus had coincidentally obtained was one of them. It was just that, Tang Zheng did not pay too much attention to this matter in the past, and had almost forgotten about it. This was because, other than Sinosaurus, there was no other similar news. Now it seemed that he was too optimistic. In fact, many changes had already happened, but they were hidden under a calm appearance, confusing his eyes. Now it seemed that the one attached to Mrs. Du's body was a yin general. The other party called himself this seat, so it seemed that he had not completely lost his life. All of this was because of him. If he had not barged into the Buzhou Mountain, the 100 Transformation Star-Lord would not have broken through the restrictions and released so many living beings. Mrs. Du would naturally not have become like this. As a result, he was duty-bound. It seems like the situation with Mrs. Du and second brother is not an exception. I need to find other people in similar situations. Some people are in danger, and some people might have obtained some benefits and gone into hiding. If not for Du Chifeng finding him by chance, the Mrs. Du would definitely have been reborn and become a cultivator in hiding. Of course, there were also some people who would obtain some magic treasures. If they were able to survive, they would naturally become cultivators. Currently, they had not heard of this situation. It seemed that they were all very smart. Before they completely understood the current situation of the society, they did not dare to act rashly. Perhaps they had already made a move, but Tang Zheng had not discovered it yet. Maybe one of the people who usually brushed past him was a spy. When he thought of this, his heart felt as if it was pressed down by a 10,000-kilogram boulder, incomparably heavy. This was really looking for a needle in a haystack. There was no definite target at all. It was even more difficult than dealing with a High Lord. Seeing his expression become extremely ugly, Du Chifeng finally could not hold it in and asked anxiously, "Young Master Tang, how is the situation?" "Don't worry, I can cure her." Tang Zheng regained his senses and stared at Mrs. Du. "Since you came from the prehistoric heavenly tomb, then I will take you in and get rid of evil for the people." "How dare you?" Mrs. Du cried out sharply. Not to mention that you are an insignificant Yin general, even if you are a powerful character, I am not afraid in the slightest. You cannot threaten me in front of me," Tang Zheng said coldly. Just as he was about to cast a spell to destroy the other party's soul, he suddenly had a thought and changed his mind. "This matter started because of me. There are so many living beings, if I were to destroy their souls one by one, wouldn't that be a great sin? The Kshitigarbha Sutra emphasizes compassion, so I should also have a compassionate heart. Why don't I learn from Dezang of Goguryeo and convert them, which can be considered a merit?" Without a doubt, in order to suppress the Asura, he recited the Kshitigarbha Sutra every day. The effect on himself could not be underestimated, and his state of mind had undergone quite a bit of change. He had experienced too many massacres, and there was a lot of evil in his heart. After reciting the Kshitigarbha Sutra every day, the evil in his heart gradually decreased, and his state of mind became much calmer. Of course, this was an imperceptible change that even he himself did not notice. Mrs. Du seemed to be a little afraid, and understood that she was not his match. Seeing that he was about to make a move, she hurriedly begged for mercy. "Please let me go, I will never do this again." Chapter 1034. In the past, when Tang Zheng recited the Kshitigarbha Sutra, there was no strange phenomenon, nor would there be golden Sanskrit words flying out of his mouth. However, when Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva recited, there was this scene. But this time, something like this happened, which surprised him. He immediately understood that his recitation day after day finally worked. His understanding of the Kshitigarbha Sutra had reached a new level, so he could reach this level. The Kshitigarbha Sutra has such power. It's incredible. Dezang of Goguryeo is really a genius. Caillou's voice suddenly sounded above Tang Zheng's head. The inner demon's voice followed. "The Kshitigarbha Sutra is specially used to deal with souls. Do you think we..." Suddenly, he realized something and stopped talking. Caillou also seemed to think of something and stopped talking at the same time. Tang Zheng naturally heard the conversation between the two. His heart moved and he hurriedly calmed down. He quietly felt this mysterious feeling. Seeing the Sanskrit words fly into Madame Du's body, she immediately calmed down. The madness in her eyes and the ruthlessness on her face gradually faded. The King of Medicine and Du Chifeng looked at this scene in horror. For them, this was the work of immortals. After listening to Tang Zheng's recitation, even they themselves became calm. Du Chifeng, who was originally anxious, also calmed down a lot. "What's going on?" Du Chifeng turned to the King of Medicine and asked. The King of Medicine shook his head. The golden Sanskrit flew straight into Mrs. Du's brain, covering the black gas like a golden coat. The ferocious face in the black gas was suddenly startled, and the grimacing look was gone. It became very peaceful. Tang Zheng was delighted. The Kshitigarbha Sutra was really extraordinary. It could purify the ghosts in the 9 serenities hell. The Yin general's soul could also be purified, and it was more useful than other magic. It was the only magic to deal with them. A golden light shone on Mrs. Du's forehead. Then, the golden light gradually left her forehead and flew out. Mrs. Du felt weak all over and fell on the bed. They could vaguely see a mass of black gas within the golden light. The three of them stared at it without blinking. They saw the golden light flash and shrink rapidly. Finally, it turned into a fingernail-sized golden bead and fell to the ground. Tang Zheng hurriedly caught it and looked at it. This golden bead was very round. The outer layer was gold, and the inner layer was black. "What is this?" Tang Zheng was shocked and did not understand the situation. Du Chifeng ran to the bedside to check on his wife. The King of Medicine hurried over and asked, "Master, what is this?" Tang Zheng pondered for a while and said, "Madame Du had a strand of soul in her body. I converted her and then she became like this. As for what this is, I don't know. Oh, what does this do? I don't know for the time being. Put it away first. Tang Zheng said that he could only ask the Dezang of Gugurio for advice when he met him in the future. Madam, you are awake. That's great. Du Chifeng hugged his wife and was overjoyed. He cheered like a naughty child. Master, is Madam Du well? The King of Medicine asked curiously. Tang Zheng nodded. She is not sick. It is because a yin spirit entered her body. If it is delayed for a while, there will be no way to save her. The yin general did not really succeed in the possession. But if she was given a few more days, it would be hard to say. Young Master Tang, thank you so much. I, Du Chifeng, will never forget your great kindness. If you have any orders, I will do it. Du Chifeng said solemnly. Tang Zheng shook his head. He did not save Madame Du to ask for repayment. Moreover, this matter was caused by him. Of course, he did not point it out. He just said lightly, Madame Du's soul is hurt. She needs to rest and calm her soul so that she can recover as soon as possible. King of Medicine, just prescribe some recovery medicine for her. Yes, Master. I will write the prescription now. The King of Medicine wrote the prescription quickly and handed it to Du Chifeng. Du Chifeng kept nodding to express his gratitude. Mr. Du, we will not disturb you. We will go back to our room first. Okay, please go ahead. I am sorry for neglecting you. Du Chifeng was immersed in strong joy. He held his wife's hand and was reluctant to let go. Master, I have something to report to you. They left and the King of Medicine said. Tang Zheng nodded and signaled the King of Medicine to go to his room. After they sat down, the King of Medicine said with emotion, this is really an eye-opener. Master's method is like the magic. I am far behind you. I don't know when I can have this kind of supernatural power. Tang Zheng thought that since he called him master, he could not say nothing. He asked, King of Medicine, do you want to learn the art of cultivation? The Medicine King was stunned. He never thought that happiness would fall from the sky so quickly. After a while, he regained his senses and hurriedly nodded. Yes, this way I can have Master's celestial methods. Yes. In fact, this is not a magic power. As long as you practice hard, you will reach this level sooner or later. Master, don't worry. I will practice hard. When I was learning medicine, I was not very talented. But in the end, I stood out because of my persistence and persistence. Although I am old, this state of mind has never changed. The King of Medicine said solemnly. Tang Zheng nodded his head in gratification, but what you are learning is the art of healing the world. The only thing I have right now is the God-killing scroll. Its killing intent is too heavy and the wondrous intent technique was created specifically for women. So, wait a few days and I will teach you a suitable cultivation technique. There were many cultivation methods in the Langya Pavilion. He could only go there to find them. The King of Medicine quickly waved his hand and said, Master, don't worry. I am not a young boy. I am not that impatient. Actually, I am here to report the results of my recent research. Oh, there are results. Of course, through the research of the life-continuing pill and other pill recipes, our pharmaceutical factory has developed a new medicine. This new medicine can slow down a person's aging and prolong a person's life. Moreover, it can prevent many serious diseases. The Medicine King excitedly said. To any medical practitioner, developing such a powerful new medicine was undoubtedly a great merit. In the past, the King of Medicine did not dare to imagine that a medicine could have such a powerful effect. But after seeing the life-continuing pill, he found that everything was possible. Miracles really did exist. Tang Zheng did not think that the King of Medicine was exaggerating. He said encouragingly, the world will remember your kindness. The King of Medicine rubbed his hands and said somewhat embarrassedly, this is all thanks to Master. If not for the life-continuing pill and other prescriptions, I would not have been able to develop this medicine. Don't be modest. This is all the result of your hard work. Now that the medicine has been sent to the relevant departments for testing, the results of our clinical trials are very good. After taking our medicine, every patient's condition has been improved and controlled. This new medicine will change the structure of the medicine market. It will really become a miracle medicine. The King of Medicine said excitedly. I will leave this matter to you. This is a good thing that will benefit the people. You must do it well and not make any mistakes. Master, rest assured. This old life of mine will fight to the death with this matter. It will definitely benefit more people. The King of Medicine patted his chest and said in high spirits. The final price of the medicine should not be too high. Do not be like the other black-hearted manufacturers. Tang Zheng warned. The King of Medicine looked at Tang Zheng with sincere admiration and said, Master is merciful. The people will remember your kindness. The King of Medicine reported some key points in the research and development and then returned to his room. Tang Zheng was not sleepy. Instead, he remembered the conversation between Kai Yu and the inner demons. He said with a smile that was not a smile, Hey, the two of you, stop pretending to be mute. We haven't finished what we were talking about. Let's continue. What did we say? We didn't say anything. Kai Yu flatly denied. The inner demons also hurriedly echoed, Yes, we didn't say anything. You must be hallucinating. Tang Zheng said jokingly, Oh, this is so rare. You guys are finally on the same page. Kai Yu and the inner demons were a little resentful, but they maintained a tacit understanding. Tang Zheng was not so easily fooled. He said bluntly, If it weren't for your reminder, I would have almost forgotten. In the end, the two of you are also souls. The Ksitigarbha Sutra is a spell that specializes in dealing with souls. Naturally, it will be effective on the two of you. How is that possible? How can we be the same as ordinary souls? The two of them hurriedly denied, Don't let your imagination run wild. It's better to cultivate properly. This is the right path. That's right, the danger you are facing now is even greater. Not only is there the Azure Dragon Palace, there are also the things that escaped from the prehistoric heavenly tomb. These are the most important things. Tang Zheng remained unmoved. I will take care of all of these things one by one, but the two of you have always been living in my body. This is not a solution. I don't want to bury a time bomb in my body. Ah, what are you doing? The two of them were shocked. In the past, they thought that they were strong enough that even Tang Zheng was not strong enough, so they did not have to worry too much about his methods. Now, it seemed that ever since he cultivated the Ksitigarbha Sutra, this situation had been quietly changing. It was just that they had never realized it before. This time, they had coincidentally realized this point and understood how terrible the situation they were facing was. They had become fish on the chopping block. They were filled with regret as they had really touched a sore spot. Why did they have to be so talkative? If not for them reminding him, Tang Zheng probably would not have thought of this point. Now that he had lifted a rock and smashed his own foot, what should he do? The two of them were at their wits' end. Tang Zheng laughed coldly. Now that I no longer need to be threatened by you, I believe that you can also become like that golden pearl, don't you think so? No, please don't do this. The two of them anxiously shouted. They were truly panicking. Chapter 1035. After hearing Tang Zheng's words, Kai Yu realized that a great disaster was about to befall them. He panicked and said, Tang Zheng, don't treat us like this. We are of great use to you. Great use? I don't see it. On the contrary, we are a great potential threat. Tang Zheng did not think so. We really are of great use. Didn't you want to find a suitable cultivation method for the King of Medicine? I have it. Kai Yu said impatiently. Tang Zheng was interested and asked, What cultivation method? Can you promise not to use the Ksitigarbha Sutra against us? Kai Yu asked nervously. Tang Zheng laughed. Haha, do you think there is still room for negotiation? The inner demons hurriedly urged, Kai Yu, this is a matter of life and death. What are you waiting for? I know what you are talking about. Hurry up and tell this young man about Shunnong Jing. Shunnong Jing? Tang Zheng asked curiously. Kai Yu sighed and said helplessly, Yes, Shunnong Jing. This is a scripture written by Shunnong in ancient times. Shunnong is the ancestor of the apricot woods. Shunnong Jing entered the Tao through medicine. It is a supreme cultivation method. It is just right for the king of medicine. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. It seemed that he did not need to go to the Langya pavilion to search. Hurry up and tell me. All right. Just as Caillou's voice fell, a ray of light flashed through Tang Zheng's mind, and then a ray of green light slowly unfolded, turning into an ancient book that he roughly browsed through. After reading it once, not only did it talk about cultivation methods, but it also recorded medical skills to treat illnesses and save people. Especially the introduction of medicinal herbs, it was refreshing. There were many things that he had never heard of before. Shenong tasted hundreds of herbs and cured countless people. Just now, he wrote this Shenong Jing. It is the most precious treasure of the apricot woods. Of course, this is a healing spell. There are very few offensive spells, Caillou explained. Tang Zheng realized that he had overlooked a problem. The king of medicine was a warrior, so he couldn't practice magic. That's not a big deal, the inner demons quickly said, as if they didn't want Caillou to take all the credit. Oh, is there any solution? Why don't we just cripple his martial arts and make him start learning magic from scratch? That's one way. However, most people wouldn't be willing to throw away everything they've learned and start from scratch after cultivating for most of their lives, Tang Zheng said worriedly. If you gain something, you lose something. Besides, Shenong Jing was made just for him. It is many times better than his half-baked martial arts. If he doesn't know how to calculate this, then he is a complete idiot. The inner demons said. Tang Zheng thought for a while, and agreed with the inner demons. However, this kind of situation did not apply to everyone. This was because it was not so easy for ordinary people to find a cultivation technique that was so suitable for them. Tang Zheng, don't you think the two of us are very useful? In the future, you will encounter more problems and more difficulties. We can still give you advice, which is definitely more useful than making us disappear. Caillou said with a bashful face. Tang Zheng frowned. He was not someone who was so easily fooled. These two fellows were indeed a treasure trove, but they were also very dangerous. He would not let them go just because of a set of Shenong Jing, so he said, "You want to bribe me with a set of Shenong Jing? You're underestimating me too much. Ah, what are you doing? Are you going to stubbornly deal with us? What do you think? No way." The inner demons hurriedly stopped him. "Young man, didn't you want to deal with those things that escaped from the prehistoric heavenly tomb? We can help you. Yes, we can help you. This is a huge project. You can't do it alone. We can lend you a hand." Caillou hurriedly chimed in as if he was grasping at a life-saving straw. Tang Zheng's head moved. This was a good idea. In fact, ever since he found out that the Ksitagaba Sutra could balance Caillou and the heart demon, he was not so worried about these two people. Because, with the Ksitagaba Sutra, they would not be able to make any big waves, and they were a huge treasure trove. He could get many useful things from them. Hastily making them disappear from this world would not do him much good. However, in order to make them obediently submit, he had to scare them as much as possible. As expected, not only did they blow up Shenong Jing this time, they even had a way to find the things that escaped. This was something worth celebrating. "Tell me in detail," Tang Zheng said with a cold face. "Yes." The inner demons smiled bitterly. He had been wise for his entire life, and no one could kill him. He never thought that he would be controlled by a young man in the end. Those things that escaped are divided into two types. Some of them are yin soul generals, and some of them are magic treasures. These magic treasures are of different levels, and our focus should be on the yin soul generals, because they have their own consciousness, and are more dangerous than magic treasures. Hearing the inner demons' analysis, Tang Zheng secretly nodded his head, thinking that it made sense, but he still retorted, "But we can't give up on the magic treasure. After all two encountered the mountain-shattering meteor hammer and almost lost his life." "All right, we'll do our best." The inner demons was helpless. These things actually have a strong prehistoric aura. As long as we grasp this clue, it will be very easy to find them. Prehistoric aura? Tang Zheng frowned. Yes, it is extremely difficult for others to discover this aura, but Caillou and I can discover it. The inner demons vowed. "Tell me what kind of aura it is." "I'll find it myself." "No. Only we can discover this kind of aura. Although your cultivation isn't bad, you can't discover it because we are people from the ancient era. That's why we have this kind of ability. The inner demons argued. Right, right. Caillou hurriedly agreed. We have been in the prehistoric heavenly tomb for tens of thousands of years, and have long known about this kind of aura. No one else has this kind of ability. Really? Tang Zheng half believed and half doubted. Caillou and the inner demons said at the same time. On this matter, the two of them maintained a high degree of consistency. Tang Zheng did not probe any further, but he guessed that it was most likely false, because Caillou and the inner demons were afraid that if they told Tang Zheng the specific method, he would destroy the bridge after crossing the river and deal with them. Since they had this kind of worry, Tang Zheng did not point it out, and treated it as giving them a reassuring pill. All right, I won't pursue the matter further, but you must tell me where this kind of prehistoric aura is. Tang Zheng said sternly. Yes, we can tell you right now that there is a prehistoric aura in the capital. Beijing. Tang Zheng was shocked, his face darkened, and asked sternly, why didn't you tell me before? This. The two of them stammered, we didn't think of this before and ignored it. We only thought of this after seeing Mrs. Du's situation. Really? Tang Zheng absolutely did not believe that the two of them must have other ideas in mind. Yes, definitely, definitely. The two of them hurriedly promised. Tang Zheng smiled and did not pursue the matter further. Then we will set off for the capital tomorrow, and we must find the prehistoric aura that you mentioned. No problem. The next day, Tang Zheng first went to check on Mrs. Du, and made sure that there was nothing serious. Tang Zheng and Mrs. Du were very grateful to him, and said a lot of good words. Then, Tang Zheng and the King of Medicine found a secluded place. The King of Medicine was confused, and did not know why his master had gathered so many people. King of Medicine, I have found the suitable magic for you to practice. The moment he opened his mouth, the Medicine King was shocked. He was overjoyed and moved to tears of gratitude. Many thanks to Master. I will never forget this kindness. Tang Zheng waved his hand and said, this magic method is called Shenong Jing. It is, what, Shenong Jing? Before he finished, the King of Medicine had already screamed in shock. Yes, what's wrong? Tang Zheng looked at him in confusion, as if his reaction was a bit too big. Master. The King of Medicine was so excited that his lips trembled. He patted his chest and suppressed the stormy waves in his heart, and said, Master, is it really Shenong Jing? Of course, do you think I would lie to you? No, I definitely didn't mean that. It's just that rumor has it that Shenong Jing has disappeared for tens of thousands of years, and there are only a few words about it in some medical books. Many people think that it is a legend, made up, and not believed at all. The King of Medicine explained. Tang Zheng was suddenly enlightened, no wonder he was so agitated, and lightly said, this is just some people's shallow view, the Shenong scripture is real. The King of Medicine nodded continuously, his old face was flushed with excitement, and even his wrinkles seemed to have smoothed out a lot. In the blink of an eye, he seemed to have become 10 years younger. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. Is it necessary to be so excited? Of course. The King of Medicine nodded seriously. Master, you don't know the name of Shenong Jing in the apricot forest. Legend has it that it was written by Shenong, and it is the origin of medicine. Many of the methods of curing diseases and saving people recorded in it are called magic, and it is extremely mysterious. If Shenong Jing really does see the light of day again, it will definitely benefit millions of people in the world. The King of Medicine talked endlessly, his eyes shining. Tang Zheng nodded secretly, and gradually understood why he was so excited. The status of Shenong Jing was really too high, and if it were anyone in the apricot forest, they would probably have the same reaction as him. In that case, you should carry Shenong Jing forward, help the world by practicing medicine, and save more people. Tang Zheng urged. The King of Medicine nodded heavily, and said meticulously, Master, don't worry, I will live up to your expectations, and I will not let Shenong and Shenong Jing down. Don't be so serious. It's just that Shenong Jing is not only a medical book, but also a set of cultivation methods. You are a warrior, and you can only practice Shenong Jing if you destroy all your kung fu. Are you willing? Tang Zheng asked. Yes, of course, I am willing, 1,000, 10,000 times willing. The king of medicine nodded eagerly. Young man, you see, we were right, he will definitely be willing. The inner demons came out to take credit. Tang Zheng ignored them, and continued to say to the king of medicine, then let's start now. I will destroy your kung fu, and it may be a little painful, you have to bear with it. Chapter 1036. There were many ways to destroy a person's kung fu. First of all, one could directly shatter a person's dantian. From then on, it would be difficult for the dantian to gather and produce internal strength. Similarly, such a dantian could no longer produce genuine qi, so the person would really be destroyed. In addition, one could also do it like when Tang Zheng participated in the kung fu competition. He was plotted against and took a strong poison like the spirit refining pill. This would not only destroy a person's kung fu, but also destroy a person's body and meridians. This method was not advisable. Finally, there was another way, which was to use a strong kung fu to dissolve the opponent's internal strength. This could only be done if there was a great disparity between the two people's kung fu. This method would not hurt the meridians and body, and was the most gentle. Tang Zheng naturally chose this method. His kung fu was much stronger than the king of medicine, so of course he could do this. However, the process of dissolving internal strength would inevitably be accompanied by pain. I'm starting. Tang Zheng shouted in a deep voice and activated his genuine qi. The medicine king's body suddenly stiffened as he furrowed his brows. This was because he felt a powerful energy rush into his meridians. At that moment, a bone-piercing pain appeared spontaneously. Ah! He subconsciously groaned in pain, but quickly gritted his teeth to hold it back. Tang Zheng's mind was not distracted as he quickly cut the Gordian knot. True qi rampaged through his meridians but did not injure his meridians as he tried to use the fastest speed to cripple his martial arts. It had to be said that although the king of medicine was a master in the apricot forest and his medical skills were exquisite, his kung fu cultivation was indeed mediocre. Therefore, Tang Zheng's progress was very fast. His genuine qi swept through the king of medicine's meridians and dantian at lightning speed. In the end, the genuine qi defeated all the internal strength, and even the internal strength in the dantian disappeared completely. If it was an ordinary case of dissolving one's kung fu, this would be the end, but Tang Zheng was not satisfied with this. The king of medicine was old, so it would take twice the effort for half the result to cultivate. In order to make up for this defect, he decided to take this opportunity to personally cleanse his muscles and marrow and widen his meridians so that he could cultivate faster in the future. Suddenly, the king of medicine could not help but cry out. Beads of sweat the size of beans appeared on his forehead. This was the side effect of the forceful cleansing of muscles and marrow. King of medicine, hold it in. I'll help you with the bone marrow cleansing. Tang Zheng hurriedly urged. The king of medicine nodded and gritted his teeth. Master, I can hold on. Just let me go. Tang Zheng secretly praised him. The pain that the king of medicine had to endure was several times more intense than that of an ordinary person. If it wasn't for his great perseverance, it would be impossible for him to endure. But Tang Zheng believed that the king of medicine could do it. As expected, although the king of medicine was sweating profusely as if he had just been fished out of the water, he gritted his teeth and did not utter a single word. The meridians were widened little by little, and the impurities were gradually discharged from the body. The surface of the king of medicine's body was covered with a layer of black dirt, and the wrinkles on his face seemed to have smoothed out a lot. Tang Zheng said in his heart that he was finally going to succeed. He pointed at the center of the medicine king's eyebrows and said, "Focus your mind and calm down. I will pass on the Shennong scripture to you. You will follow the Shennong scripture's instructions to guide your qi and enter the refining qi stage." Yes, master. The king of medicine was in pain and happiness. Suddenly, he felt a light flash in his mind, and then there was an ancient book. He was shocked and immediately understood that this was the Shennong Jing. He was so happy that he almost cheered, but he immediately restrained his mind and followed the Shennong Jing's instructions. He began to cultivate little by little. A warm feeling immediately grew from his dantian, and then flowed along his meridians to his limbs and bones. True qi, is this the true qi? He was overjoyed, and his temples were throbbing. Tang Jing also noticed the true qi in his body. Although this true qi was weak, it naturally repelled his true qi, as if it wanted to drive out this invader. Tang Zheng's mouth curved into a smile, and he controlled the true qi to withdraw little by little from his meridians, and then he guarded him. The king of medicine was like a statue, motionless, and immersed in the mysterious realm of cultivation. From now on, he could be considered to have stepped into the threshold of cultivation, and was able to glimpse the mystery of the great Tao. After a long time, the king of medicine finally opened his eyes, and his eyes were full of joy. He excitedly said, "Master, I've finally succeeded. I've become a cultivator. Thank you for the grace of rebirth." As he spoke, he was about to bow down to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng hurriedly held him and said with a smile, "No need to be so polite. Since you call me master, this is what I should do. Master's great kindness, I'll never forget it. I taught you Shenong Jing so that you can better practice medicine and save people. I hope you won't forget your original intention, and carry forward Shenong Jing, so that my painstaking efforts will not be in vain." Tang Jing sincerely said. Although there was a large age gap between the two, they didn't feel the slightest awkwardness towards these words. As the saying goes, the one who reaches the top first. Both of them tacitly agreed on this point. The king of medicine patted his chest, and like a hot-blooded youth, he passionately expressed his promise. Suddenly, he frowned and said, why is it so smelly? Ha, I'm washing your meridians and removing the impurities. This strange smell is the cause of the impurities being expelled from your body." The king of medicine suddenly understood, and hurriedly went back to his room to take a bath. The two chatted for a while, and Tang Zheng clearly explained some things to pay attention to in cultivation, and then they parted ways. He went back to the capital, and the king of medicine went back to the pharmaceutical factory. He flew back to the capital on his sword, and as soon as he landed, he couldn't wait to ask, "Caillou, inner demons, you said that there's a primordial aura in the capital, where is it? Quickly take me there." The two immediately appeared and said, "Don't be noisy, let us feel it first. The smog in the capital is so bad that even the primordial aura is covered up by this smog, and has become very weak. We have to find it slowly." Tang Jing speechlessly rolled his eyes, and looked up at the sky. The sky was gloomy, as if it was covered with a layer of grey cloth. Although the Tree of Life had been constantly improving the spiritual energy and air in this world, after all, it had only been a short time, and the air quality was really too poor, so the effect was not immediately visible. For the time being, Tang Zheng didn't have any way to deal with the smog that filled the sky, and could only pray that the Tree of Life's effect would appear as soon as possible. However, he had a new idea about his villa area. He couldn't care less about other people's territory, after all, he didn't have that much ability, but if his own area was filled with turbid air all day long, it would be too embarrassing. Therefore, he had to find a way to improve the air in his area, and turn it into a paradise in the capital. "Your idea is not bad, and it's not difficult to realize, a spirit-gathering array can easily do it," Caillou praised. Now, Caillou and the inner demons took turns to praise him. They all wanted to make a good impression on him. "Of course, don't you see who came up with this idea?" Tang Zheng said proudly, "Let's find the primordial aura first, then go back and set up a spirit-gathering array." "I got it." The inner demons suddenly shouted, "I can feel the primordial aura." "Inner demons, don't shout, you're not the only one who can feel it, I can feel it too." Caillou snorted. "Stop arguing, let's go." Following the inner demons and Caillou's directions, Tang Zheng walked through the streets and came to the entrance of a house. "It's here, the primordial aura is coming from inside," the two said with certainty. Tang Zheng looked up, a familiar door and a familiar plaque came into view. "Yi Mansion. Why are we here?" This was the Ye family's mansion in the capital. Tang Zheng used to be a frequent guest, but after Yi Tianlei and Yi Xuanji broke off, he never came here again. The Yi mansion was still as tall as before, and the courtyard was deep. There was no difference compared to before, unlike the Song and Chu families that were completely ruined. When the guards at the door saw Tang Jing, their expressions became strange. After all, who didn't know the former son-in-law of the Ye family. Seeing him standing at the door, they couldn't guess what he was thinking, so they didn't dare to act rashly. "Are you sure it's here?" Tang Zheng looked at the house with a strange expression, and asked the two. Kai Yu and the inner demons seemed to have been greatly insulted, and said sullenly, "You can doubt other things, but how can you doubt our professionalism? The primordial aura is coming from inside." Tang Zheng nodded with a sullen face. Could it be that someone in the Ye family had been taken over? This was something new and unheard of. "Then let's go in and take a look." Tang Zheng could even come and go freely in the inner palace, so how could he be blocked by these high walls? When he walked to the door, the guards quickly came up and stopped him with a complicated expression, and nervously said, "Young Master Tang, please stop." Tang Zheng didn't plan to make things difficult for them, and calmly said, "I won't make things difficult for you, just open the door." The guards had a difficult expression, and said, "Young Master Tang, we have a duty, forgive us for not being able to comply." Seeing Tang Zheng's expression suddenly change, as if he was about to flip out, a smart guard quickly said, "Young Master Tang, please wait a moment, we will go and report." Tang Zheng hesitated. Since the primordial aura was in the Yi mansion, it naturally couldn't escape, so he nodded his head. Not long after, the guards hurriedly ran back, and respectfully bowed to Tang Zheng, and said, "Young Master Tang, please, the patriarch is waiting for you in the main hall." Tang Zheng walked in with large strides, and found that there wasn't much change in the Yi mansion. He secretly asked the two guards about the primordial aura's whereabouts, and the two acted as guides, guiding him forward. "Ari, young Master Tang, it's not that way, it's this way." Seeing Tang Zheng turn the corner, the guards were shocked, and quickly shouted, "The patriarch is waiting in the main hall, it's this way. I'll go over here first." Tang Zheng didn't want to delay any longer, and with a leap, he turned into a blur, and rushed towards the direction of the primordial aura. "Ah, young Master Tang, you can't." The guards turned pale with fright, and screamed. Suddenly, a figure descended from the sky, and blocked in front of Tang Zheng. Looking closely, it was actually Yi Xuanji, who looked a bit older than before, and his snow-white beard fluttered in the wind. Chapter 1037. Yi Xuanji's aura was incomparably sharp, even more so than before. Tang Zheng's eyes narrowed into two slits as he looked at him calmly. "Tang Zheng, this is the Ye family, not just anyone can barge in," Yi Xuanji said in an unfriendly tone. Tang Zheng was unmoved and said, "Is that so? Could it be that there's some unspeakable secret?" Yi Xuanji's temples throbbed as he asked, "What do you mean by that?" Tang Zheng also stared straight at Yi Xuanji, as if he wanted to find some clues from his reaction, but Yi Xuanji was after all an old fox, so how could he be seen through so easily? There were no flaws at all. "Just now, the guard came to report that you're here. Since you're a guest, I naturally wouldn't neglect you. But if you're here to cause trouble, even though my Ye family is weak, we're not that easy to bully," Yi Xuanji said firmly. Tang Zheng turned around and asked Kai Yu and the inner demons if the great desolate aura was nearby. After getting an affirmative answer, Tang Zheng made up his mind. Even though it wasn't good to barge in, this matter was still very important and he couldn't be careless. Moreover, the Ye family was his opponent. If he was too polite, it would seem hypocritical. His eyes flashed as he walked straight towards the direction of the great desolate aura. 9 unspecified currency. Yi Xuanji slid and blocked his way. Their eyes met and sparks were already flying. "If that's the case, then I won't be polite." After Tang Zheng finished speaking, he pushed his palms towards Yi Xuanji's chest. Yi Xuanji roared and quickly blocked with his palms. Bang! 4 palms collided and Yi Xuanji was pushed back a few steps. But Tang Zheng didn't move at all, as if he was Mount Tai. Yi Xuanji's expression changed as he exclaimed, "How did your cultivation become so high?" Even though he had expected Tang Zheng's cultivation to be unfathomable, he had never thought that his cultivation would be so high. It was not just a little bit higher than the last time they fought. Moreover, his intuition told him that Tang Zheng didn't use his full strength, otherwise he would have suffered even more. How did Tang Zheng do it? In just a few months' time? Could it be that cultivators are so much stronger than warriors? In the time it takes for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, Many thoughts flashed through his mind, and his emotions fluctuated unsteadily. You're not my match, you can't stop me. Tang Zheng said lightly. He has the right to say this, not because he's arrogant. Yi's expression as the Ye family. How can I watch you barge into the Ye family without doing anything? How can my Ye family stand in front of the world? How can I let the Ye family? How can I the Ye family? How can I watch you the Ye family? If you, how can I? My family is right. How can I right? How can I the can I? How can I? Whoosh. After he finished speaking, a sword flashed and a sword appeared in his hand. The cold sword flashed towards Tang Zheng's throat. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed coldly as he stared at the approaching sword and thought, why do I feel like I've seen this before? Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he realized, wind-chasing sword art. No, this is definitely not the real wind-chasing sword art. It's a fake. His guess was not wrong. Ever since Yi Xuanji had seen Yi Dingdang's mysterious wind-chasing sword technique, he had been unable to get it out of his mind. Later on, he went into seclusion for a long time and devoted himself to studying it. Finally, he created this wind-chasing sword technique, but compared to the real wind-chasing sword technique, it was worlds apart. Tang Zheng smirked and said, trying to imitate but making a fool out of yourself. A fake like you dares to act arrogantly in front of me? I'll let you see what the real wind-chasing sword art is. Tang Zheng casually plucked a branch from the side. With a flick of his wrist, the leaves fell and turned into a bare branch. Yi Xuanji's face slightly changed, but his sword attack did not weaken. Instead, it became sharper and filled with killing intent. To deal with you, this is enough. Tang Zheng calmly said. To Yi Xuanji, this was no different from a huge insult. His face turned green as he angrily said, you're courting death. Whoosh. The long sword arrived in front of Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng lightly waved the branch and pointed it out. The strength and speed were just right. When it touched the long sword, the branch bent into a full moon shape but did not break. Instead, the long sword received a huge rebound force. Wang. The long sword violently trembled. Yi Xuanji could not control it and his hand involuntarily loosened. The long sword flew out of his hand and fiercely pierced into the roof, leaving the sword hilt trembling incessantly. Looking at this scene, Yi Xuanji was stunned. He had lost completely. He thought that he had comprehended the essence of the wind-chasing sword art, but he did not expect that he could not even withstand one of Tang Zheng's moves. Just now, Tang Zheng's move was fast and accurate. It seemed to be light, but in reality, it had the power of 10,000 kilograms. It was the essence of the wind-chasing sword art. His face revealed an unprecedented look of despair. Tang Zheng did not continue to tangle with him, nor did he take advantage of the situation to attack him. After all, he was Yi Dingdang's grandfather and Yi Tianlei's father. If he really did something to him, then there would be a rift between him and Yi Tianlei's family. He turned into a gust of wind and swept past Yi Xuanji. This time, he was too late to block. Hey! Why did the primitive aura disappear? Suddenly, Kai Yu and the inner demons exclaimed. Tang Zheng was shocked. He had no choice but to stop and ask, how did it disappear? Didn't you say it was very obvious? It was very obvious just now, but now it has disappeared. The two were helpless and also seemed to be very puzzled. Tang Zheng frowned and looked at the many rooms in front of him. The Ye family was a big house. It occupied a large area and there were many rooms. Without a clear target, it was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Could it be that the person heard the fighting, so he noticed the situation and deliberately hid? The inner demons mumbled. Kai Yu was surprised. He pondered for a while and analyzed logically, if that's the case, then this soul has probably succeeded in taking over the body. It might even have recovered a lot of its power. Moreover, it must have been a powerful master when it was alive, so it could hide the primitive aura. Hearing this, Tang Zheng was also shocked. If it had succeeded in taking over the body, then whose body did it take over in the Ye family? Didn't you say that you could easily detect the primitive aura? Why can the other party disappear under your nose now? Tang Zheng asked angrily. Kai Yu hurriedly explained, Tang Zheng, don't slander us, we are just a strand of soul, and our strength is greatly reduced. If we were to occupy a body, then no matter how well the other party hides, they will not be able to escape our fiery golden eyes. The inner demons also agreed, that makes sense. Why don't you find a body for us and let us be reborn? Then these are all small problems. We will solve them for you in minutes. Tang Zheng sneered mockingly, your plan is too good. Do you think you can fool me like this? Stop dreaming. If I let you take over my body and be reborn, wouldn't I be digging my own grave? How can that be? We have been together for so long. We have feelings for each other. We are close friends. The inner demons and Caillou retorted. Stop dreaming. Quickly find a way to find the other party. Tang Zheng urged. The two of them fell silent at the same time. After a while, they said faintly, I'm afraid there is no way. No way? Tang Zheng stared with his eyes wide open. You were so confident before. Now you are breaking the chain. We don't want to either. The two of them mumbled, feeling wronged. Chimph, I don't care. Anyway, if there is no way, now that we are here, I will not give up halfway. Tang Zheng purposely forced the two of them. Let's capture Yi Xuanji and interrogate him. Maybe we will get something. The inner demons suggested. Tang Zheng sneered, what kind of rotten idea is that? Do you think Yi Xuanji is a coward? You think he will listen to you just by scaring him? Don't we still have the soul-searching method? Caillou said. Tang Zheng's head moved, but he immediately rejected this method. Just like killing Yi Xuanji, this would also cause a rift between him and Yi Tianlei's family. This was a last resort. He would not do this unless he had no other choice. Su su su. Suddenly, several figures flew over from a distance and surrounded Tang Zheng. They were Yi Xuanji, Yi Tianming, and Yi Ku. Tang Zheng, you are too arrogant. Do you really think that the Ye family is a place where you can come and go as you please? Yi Tianming roared. Yi Ku indignantly scolded, don't think that you can be arrogant by relying on your own weight. You can ride on top of our Ye family's head. This time, if you don't give us an explanation, don't even think about leaving. Tang Zheng's eyes wandered over the three of them. His eyes were burning like a scanner, as if he wanted to see through the three of them. Then who would the Yin general choose to be his puppet? The strong. The other party will definitely choose the strong, so that he can exert his strength to a greater extent. Caillou quickly said. Tang Zheng's head moved and asked, the strong people of the Ye family are in front of him. Do you think he will choose one of the three? This possibility is not ruled out. The inner demons agreed. Just now, I fought with Yi Xuanji, and at that time, the great desolate aura still existed. That is to say, Yi Xuanji can be excluded. Then, he can only choose between Yi Tianming and Yi Ku. Tang Zheng analyzed. His eyes swept back and forth between Yi Tianming and Yi Ku. Why are you looking at us like this? Yi Ku asked in a bad mood. Tang Zheng did not answer. Instead, he made a move. Yi Ku was still a few meters away. She saw Tang Zheng's big hand reach out and use the swallowing sky technique. A powerful suction force spread out from his palm. Yi Ku exclaimed and involuntarily flew towards Tang Zheng. Bang bang. His feet fiercely stomped on the ground, trying to stop his body. However, all this was in vain. He finally fell into Tang Zheng's palm. Tang Zheng, what are you doing? Yi Tianming roared. His son was captured. His mood could be imagined. With a roar, the long sword in his hand trembled. Swish swish swish, the sword bloomed in the sky. The man and the sword came together and stabbed towards Tang Zheng's heart. Chapter 1038. The branch in Tang Zheng's hand had not been thrown away. He shook the branch and faced the two people. Since they wanted to fight, then he would accompany them to the end. It was a good opportunity to test the two people's cultivation. With two swishing sounds, the branch was like a sharp sword, pointing at the two people's vital points. Since he wanted to test whether it was true or false, he naturally would not be merciful. He had to force the two people into a desperate situation. The branch accurately pierced the two people's bodies. However, the two people did not fall, nor did blood burst out. The two people's faces showed a sinister and strange smile, which made people's hair stand on end. What's going on? Tang Zheng was shocked. He was very clear on the power of his attack. With the cultivation of these two people, it was impossible for them to block it. Even if they were strong, it was impossible for them to do so. Could it be that these two people had already been taken over and reborn? Haha, Tang Zheng, your methods are useless. You should obediently accept your death. You have committed all kinds of crimes against our Ye family in the past. Today, you will pay for them all. Yi Ku shouted ferociously. Tang Zheng frowned. Yi Ku was very different from what he usually saw. There was always a strange feeling that he could not explain. He immediately looked at Yi Tianming. The smile on the other side's mouth seemed to be particularly strange. Young man, Ku, don't you feel that something is wrong? The inner demons suddenly asked. What's wrong? Tang Zheng was confused. Caillou said, you are really too stupid. You usually boast that you are smart. Why are you so stupid today? Can't you see such a simple flaw? Tang Zheng was more confused. Where was the flaw? Why did he not see it after looking for a long time? What flaw? Yi Tianming is already dead. How could he appear here? Caillou asked. The inner demons echoed, yes, isn't this a flaw? A big flaw. Yi Tianming is dead. Tang Zheng's eyes widened. Why did he not remember this? Really? Are you suffering from amnesia? Caillou said snappily. You're the one with amnesia. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes and retorted. That's weird. There must be a problem. It's just that we haven't figured it out yet. Could it be that Yi Tianming was the one who was possessed and reborn? The inner demons were amazed. If only it was that simple. I think things are even more complicated. Caillou said disapprovingly. After listening to the conversation between the two, Tang Zheng felt like his brain was turning into mush. He was getting more and more confused. It was as if something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Before the three of them could come up with a solution, Yi Xuanji and the other two launched a fierce attack. In an instant, 3 swords were launched at the same time, attacking Tang Zheng together. Tang Zheng threw away the branch and changed to the War Soul Sword. He quickly slashed his sword. The air shook and the sword light directly penetrated Yi Xuanji's body. Yi Xuanji was safe and sound. Instead, he revealed a proud smile. His long sword flew out of his hand and slashed at Tang Zheng. Clang! The War Soul Sword forced the sword back. However, the long sword didn't fly away. Instead, it made a circle in the air and turned back. Imperial Sword Technique. Tang Zheng was too familiar with this scene and couldn't help but exclaim. Yi Xuanji was a martial artist. How could he know the Imperial Sword Technique? This didn't make sense at all. Whoosh! The long sword flew out again. This time, it was faster and more accurate. It was completely an attack of the wind-chasing sword technique. It wasn't the unorthodox attack that Yi Xuanji used before. Instead, it was the essence of the wind-chasing sword technique. With the combination of the Imperial Sword Technique, the power of this attack increased sharply. Even Tang Zheng felt a huge pressure. Tang Zheng quickly raised his sword to block. He felt as if he had suffered a heavy blow. His arm went numb and the War Soul Sword almost flew out of his hand. No, no! The inner demons and Caillou shouted at the same time. This isn't real. We finally know why the Great Desolate Aura disappeared. It's because we've already fallen into a trap. Fallen into a trap? Tang Zheng's expression was strange. He didn't know what to do. Yes, all of this is fake. There's no difference between a fake and a real one. It actually deceived all of our eyes. The inner demons let out a long sigh. I finally know who the Great Desolate Aura is. Only he can do this and deceive all of us. Caillou said indignantly, I also know who you're talking about. I didn't think that this person wouldn't stop even after he died. He came out to stir up trouble and even hit my head. Seeing the two speak with righteous indignation, Tang Zheng quickly asked, Who are you talking about? Nightmare. Who is he? This person was one of the generals under the Yellow Emperor. Many of my 9 Li tribe's warriors died in his hands. Caillou said hatefully. What kind of ability does he have to be so powerful? Nightmare's ability is something that no one else has. In this world, he is the only one who knows his magic. He also doesn't have a successor because his talent is too special. No one can stand shoulder to shoulder with him. He created a set of spells for himself, called Traceless Dream of Heart. What's so powerful about this magic? Caillou gave a heavy snort, as if he didn't want to talk about it. The inner demons said, "Do you usually dream?" "Of course I dream. Everyone dreams." The nightmare's power lies in its ability to create a dreamscape. Then without leaving a trace, it can silently lure people into a dream. In a dreamscape, anything is possible. It's like a heavenly steed soaring across the sky. It doesn't stick to a certain pattern. Moreover, the person who enters the dreamscape won't know that they're dreaming because it's too real. The two of us are inside your body and haven't been attacked by the nightmare. That's why we can see through everything. When you dream, do you dream of someone who has already passed away? Then you don't think that they're dead, and you even talk to them like a normal person? The inner demons asked. Tang Zheng nodded. This kind of situation was too common. Most people would have encountered it at least once. So, right now we're in a dreamscape created by the nightmare. That's why we're like this. The dead come back to life, the enemy becomes stronger. These kinds of things that surpass common sense can only happen in a dreamscape. But the nightmare's power lies in the fact that even though it's a dreamscape, once you're killed by the enemy, you'll really die in the dreamscape. Those who are lured into the dreamscape by the nightmare's traceless dream will be trapped in the dreamscape if they can't break out of the dreamscape. The nightmare will always think of ways, and even deliberately create nightmares to make people die in their dreams. These words enlightened Tang Zheng. His heart was as clear as a mirror, and his eyes lit up. Everything in front of him seemed to distort. The air violently fluctuated, and the trees and houses around him became faintly discernible. The smiles of the three people in front of him became increasingly strange, causing his heart to feel cold. This is all fake. I'm dreaming. Tang Zheng shouted himself hoarse. Boom. With a loud noise, the whole world seemed to collapse. The faces of the three people in front of him became blurred. He only heard a shrill cry, "How did you see through it?" The scene in front of him suddenly changed. The three people disappeared, and everything around him became clear again. Whoosh, whoosh. Two sounds came from afar. In the blink of an eye, two people came in front of him. Looking closely, it was Yi Xuanji and Yi Ku. Tang Zheng's pupils suddenly shrank. He said in his heart that this was not a dream. Of course it's not a dream, this is reality. Although the nightmare's spell is powerful, once it's a dreamscape, it can quietly withdraw. However, once trapped, it's really difficult to recognize that you're in a dreamscape, so you can't withdraw at all. Unless you have a really great magical ability, otherwise, in the face of the nightmare's spell, you're really powerless. The nightmare once said that when he cultivates the heart's dream traceless spell to the extreme, even if it's a magnificent army, he can quietly lure them into a dream and eliminate them all in the dream. The inner demons introduced. Tang Zheng's head moved, and said, "Then during the Battle of Zhuolu, did the nightmare also use the heart's dream traceless spell?" Caillou snorted coldly, and said, "Of course, how could he give up on such a powerful spell? It's just that he thinks highly of himself, but in the end, he can't escape death. My people are not to be trifled with, although they paid a huge price, they still killed this scourge. It's just that I didn't expect that after tens of thousands of years, nightmare would appear again." Tang Zheng patted his forehead, feeling bitter in his heart. In the ancient times, the experts gathered together, and all kinds of spells blossomed, making it hard to imagine. With so many souls escaping from the prehistoric heavenly tomb, it would probably cause a lot of trouble. Since there is a first time, then I will be extremely careful. I will not fall into the nightmare demon's trap again. You all said that these souls would choose the strong, then other than Yi Xuanji, there is only Yi Ku left in the Yi mansion. Could it be that the nightmare demon chose him? Tang Zheng muttered to himself, staring at Yi Ku like a torch. The Ye family looked at Tang Zheng. Just now, they saw that Tang Zheng was as motionless as a statue from afar. The two of them were shocked, but they did not sit back and watch. Instead, they directly chose to charge over, preparing to give him a fatal blow. However, just as they rushed in front of him, they discovered that Tang Zheng had freed himself from the meditative state of the old monk. As a result, the two of them immediately stopped in their tracks, and did not dare to act rashly. They looked at him suspiciously, not knowing what kind of medicine he was selling in his gourd. Tang Zheng, do you really think that my Ye family has no one left? Today, even if I, Yi Xuanji, risk my life, I will not let you succeed. Yi Xuanji said while gnashing his teeth. Just now, he was completely shocked by Tang Zheng's strength. When Tang Zheng left, he was both scared and ashamed. He was the dignified patriarch of a generation. If he was scared like this, then he would not be able to show his face in the Yi clan in the future. He would be pointed at behind his back and scolded to death. As the head of the family, of course he could not ignore it. Therefore, even though he knew that he was no match for it, he still had to chase after it. Only this time, there was Yi Ku. Chapter 1039. Tang Zheng did not pay attention to Yi Xuanji's clamor, he just stared at Yi Ku intently, as if he wanted to see through her. Does he have a great aura? No. What about the great aura? It appeared again, in the small courtyard behind. Tang Zheng suddenly turned his head to look. Doesn't this mean that the nightmare did not choose Yi Ku, but chose another person? He stared at the wall behind him, as if he wanted to let his eyes penetrate it to see who could get the favor of the nightmare. Tang Zheng, what are you looking around for? Yi Xuanji scolded. Tang Zheng coldly snorted, his toes touched the ground, and he was about to fly into the small courtyard. Stop for me. Yi Xuanji roared, his heels slammed on the ground, and the ground immediately cracked. He was like a cannonball, flying out. The sword in his hand shone brightly, and he and the sword seemed to be integrated into one. Seeing this scene, Tang Zheng understood that the other party was going all out, and quickly raised the War Soul Sword. The War Soul Sword whistled, and one sword flew into the sky. Ding Dang shouted, and the two swords clashed. One sword and one person fell from the sky, drawing a bloody trace in the sky, and heavily fell to the ground, blood spurting out. At this moment, Yi Xuanji seemed to have aged more than 10 years. Originally, there were a few black hairs, but now all of them have turned white. This blow, Tang Zheng broke all of his defenses, even his mind, and the damage he suffered was immeasurable. Tang Zheng did not hide anything. It was the other party's repeated threats that made him really angry. Moreover, the Ye family actually had such a powerful existence as the nightmare. Tang Zheng had to be careful. Grandpa. Yi Ku was originally preparing to attack Tang Zheng, but when she saw this scene, she subconsciously stopped and helped Yi Xuanji up. Tang Zheng, I will fight with you. Yi Ku shouted, her face was crazy. Yi Xuanji grabbed his sleeves tightly and shook his head, Don't, you are not his match. Tang Zheng coldly looked at the two of them and said, I originally didn't want to be your enemy, but since someone in your mansion has been possessed, I have no choice but to interfere. Moreover, this is for your own good because the people you are familiar with are already in danger. Possession? Yi Xuanji took a deep breath and suppressed the blood in his heart as he asked. That's right. An extremely powerful soul has attacked one of your people. If you don't treat him in time, he'll be in grave danger. Hey, nonsense, you want to use this reason to deceive us, do you really think that we are 3-year-old children? Yi Ku disapproved and sarcastically said. Tang Zheng ignored him and said, Yi Xuanji, it's up to you whether you believe me or not. I'm telling the truth. Yi Xuanji had a complicated expression on his face. After pondering for a while, he said, What evidence do you have? The evidence is at the back of the yard. We'll know once we go in and take a look. Tang Zheng pointed to the back. Behind this courtyard? Who are you trying to fool? No one lives in this courtyard for a long time. How can there be people? Hey, Tang Zheng, don't you know how to make up a better lie when you're lying? Yi Ku snorted. No one, how can it be? Tang Zheng didn't believe it. It was clear that the great desolate aura was coming from inside. His heart moved and he asked, could it be that an outsider broke in and deliberately hid inside? Haha, ridiculous. Where do you think my Ye family is? What kind of cats and dogs can come and go as they please? Yiku pointed at the mulberry tree and scolded the locust tree. Tang Zheng frowned. Yiku, keep your mouth clean, otherwise you will suffer. Yiku still wanted to argue, but was stopped by Yi Xuanji. He looked deeply at the courtyard, not knowing what he was thinking. Bad, the great desolate aura is moving, the other party wants to escape. The inner demons suddenly shouted. Don't let him escape. Caillou urged, quickly chase. Tang Zheng also ignored the Ye family, jumped and rushed into the courtyard. Yi Ku shouted stop and tried to chase, but she was held back by Yi Xuanji. She could only watch as Tang Zheng disappeared in the courtyard. Grandpa, why are you pulling me? This is the Ye family, how can we let him do whatever he wants? Yi Ku said indignantly. Yi Xuanji's face sank and said, young people are full of vigor, what do you know? If you chase after him, what if something bad happens to you? What will happen to our Ye family? I can die, but you absolutely can't die. You are the hope of the Ye family, do you understand? Yiku lowered her head in shame and said, Grandpa, I know I was wrong. How much credibility do you think Tang Zheng's words have? Humph, he is completely lying. Yiku's face was cold and said without thinking. Yi Xuanji was silent. Yiku was shocked and asked, Grandpa, you don't really believe his nonsense, do you? Do you think it is necessary for him to talk nonsense to both of us? We can't threaten him at all. He is so active, what can he do, or what benefits can he get? Yi Xuanji pointed out. Yiku was speechless. Yi Xuanji patted Yiku's shoulder and said earnestly, think more when you encounter things. I found that since the war, you have become more and more impatient. Although you have Tang Zheng, this mountain in front of you, but even in the face of the mountain, we have to have the spirit of a foolish old man moving the mountain. Conserve energy, accumulate strength little by little, and one day, we can dig up this mountain. Yiku lowered her head and said, Yes, Grandpa, I understand. He turned his eyes and asked, Since you think that what Tang Zheng said is true, then what is the matter with the soul, he said. Of course we have to figure it out. Let's go in. Yi Xuanji stood up with difficulty as the injury he received just now was not enough to take his life. The two hurriedly rushed into the courtyard, only to find that Tang Zheng's figure had jumped up from another wall and completely disappeared. He didn't find what he wanted. Yi Xuanji said, Let's catch up. However, the two chased for a while, and completely couldn't see Tang Zheng's whereabouts. They could only look at the endless flow of traffic and sigh. Yi Ku stomped her foot and said, Damn, I let him run away. Yi Xuanji shook his head slightly and said, About what Tang Zheng said later, you are not allowed to spread it, understand? Yes. Yi Ku didn't know why, but she quickly responded. In addition, pay more attention to Tang Zheng's movements during this time. He is jumping too happily, and this has become the target of public criticism. We don't have to deal with him, someone else will clean him up. We just need to watch the show, and then save our strength. Yiku nodded. The leader is determined to support our Ye family. If we are unable to support the leader will change his target in minutes, and our Ye family will completely lose the opportunity to rise. Therefore, during this time, you must be 120% alert, there must be no mistakes. Yi Xuanji sternly warned. Yiku understood the importance of the matter and nodded heavily. When Tang Zheng chased into the courtyard, the primitive aura had already escaped. He followed the aura and quickly chased out. As for the Ye family behind him, he didn't take them to heart, because he could quickly get rid of them. Sure enough, he quickly got rid of the two people, but the speed of the primitive aura was so fast that it was jaw-dropping. Even he couldn't catch up. Tang Zheng, the nightmare, was a strong man who had reached the Darching realm. Although it is only his soul, I am afraid that after the possession, his cultivation base is definitely not low. It is even possible that it is higher than yours, so you may not be able to catch up with him. The inner demons said worriedly. Caillou retorted, We have to catch up. This is our last chance. Our perception range of the primitive aura is only 5 kilometers. Once it exceeds this range, we can't do anything. Since we have already alerted the enemy, if we let the other party escape, the other party will definitely hide completely, and it will be difficult to find them again. The perception range is only 5 kilometers, then why didn't you say it before? Tang Zheng was surprised. This, you didn't ask. Caillou and the inner demons said bitterly. Tang Zheng thought about it and immediately understood what the two were thinking. He asked, you deliberately raised your value before, so you didn't say this, right? In order to survive and prove their great value, the two of them naturally wouldn't reveal their shortcomings. As for the desolate aura in the Yi residence, they had long discovered it, which was why they were so confident. As for the other desolate auras, they couldn't sense them at all. They didn't even have the slightest clue. I was actually tricked by the two of you. Tang Zheng's expression was unkind. How did we trick you? We can really sense the primitive aura, but there is a distance limit. Humph, deliberately exaggerating, isn't that a trick? You're wrong, we didn't lie to you at all. The two hurriedly defended themselves. It had to be said that what the two said was not unreasonable. Tang Zheng didn't ask, and they didn't say in detail, so it wasn't a trick. It was Tang Zheng's fault for subconsciously making a mistake. Wait until I catch this nightmare, then I'll deal with you guys. Tang Zheng was indignant and raised his speed to the limit. He madly ran all the way, circling through the streets of Beijing. After chasing for half a day, he still couldn't even see the shadow of the other party. Only the primitive aura was guiding him. This made Tang Zheng depressed and secretly competitive. If I can't catch up, then I'll catch up. Let's see who can last longer. Ring ring ring. Suddenly, the phone in his pocket rang. At this critical moment, who is calling? Young Master Tang, quickly come and save me. Ji Wuxiang's voice came from the phone, sounding very anxious. What's the matter? Someone wants to kill me. Who wants to kill you? Beep beep. The phone was cut off, and when he called back, he was told that the phone was turned off. Don't worry about that, Ji Wuxiang. Catching the nightmare is the most important thing. Caillou urged. The inner demons hurriedly retorted, although the nightmare is important, Ji Wuxiang is also important. If his celestial chess falls into the hands of others, I'm afraid it will be very disadvantageous for you. Ji Wuxiang is a genius. Such a person cannot fall into the hands of others. Chapter 1040. What's so hard to choose? Stop hesitating and continue chasing the Nightmare Lord. Otherwise, it will be too late for regrets. Caillou kept urging. The inner demons retorted, Caillou, don't be an alarmist. He has a grudge with you, that's why you want to kill him. The Nightmare Lord is indeed powerful, but to say that he's so powerful that it's against the heavens is definitely an exaggeration. Why would the Nightmare Lord run away and not face Tang Zheng head-on? Because he knows that Tang Zheng has a way to break his traceless dream spell. His most powerful spell would not work, so he would naturally run away. Is that so? Tang Zheng's heart moved as he asked. Of course it is so. The inner demons said as a matter of fact. Caillou did not refute, clearly agreeing with this point. If I meet the Nightmare Lord again, can I not be affected by his traceless dream spell? Tang Zheng asked curiously. The inner demons confidently said, of course not for normal people, but you can rest assured that with us here, even if he can lure you into the dream realm, he won't be able to lure us. So, as long as the two of us are here, the Nightmare Lord's spell will not work. So that's how it is. Tang Zheng suddenly understood, immediately understanding the importance of the situation. Inner demons, if you don't speak, no one will think you're a mute. Caillou said in a flustered and exasperated manner. The inner demons chuckled. Caillou, you're so flustered and exasperated because I'm right. What I said is the truth. As for how to choose, that's up to the young man. You don't really think that you can make the young man's decision, right? Don't be so arrogant. Arrogance makes people fall behind. Tang Zheng did not pay attention to the two of them arguing. In his heart, he gradually came up with a plan. Since he had chased the Nightmare Lord for so long and still could not catch him, that meant that the Nightmare Lord's methods were very good. Even if he continued to chase, he might not be able to catch him. However, if Ji Wuxiang fell into the enemy's hands, He would not be able to keep the chess piece and would be a huge threat to himself. I understand. In an instant, he made his decision. What are you going to do? I'll go save Ji Wuxiang first. Caillou really wanted to look up at the sky and sigh. He hatefully said to the inner demons, it's you who ruined my plans. I'll remember you. Just you wait. The inner demons didn't care. Caillou, whether it was when you were alive or now, you can't do anything to me. So your threat is too weak to be effective. Inner demons, you really are my nemesis. Caillou shouted angrily. Tang Zheng changed direction and headed straight for the Xiangqi Club. Although Ji Wuxiang did not say where he was, he had a feeling that Ji Wuxiang was most likely in the Go Club. When he arrived at the Go Club, the door was tightly shut. He immediately frowned. He had guessed correctly. As for what had happened in the Go Club, no one knew. Even the passers-by at the door did not notice anything strange. However, Tang Zheng sensed it. He quickly went to the corner and, while no one was paying attention, lightly tiptoed into the Go Club. Separated by a wall, the outside was noisy, but the inside was silent. Not even the chirping of insects or birds could be heard. It was terrifyingly silent. As far as the eye could see, he understood what was going on. Because everything in front of him was completely different from before. It was a mess. The pavilions had collapsed and turned into ruins. The mood of the small bridge and flowing water was completely destroyed. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted as he hurriedly rushed out. After a few steps, he saw the only place that was completely undamaged, the hall, which was also the place where many chess players used to play. The Go boards were still standing. The Go players sat in front of the boards, holding the pieces in their hands. Their faces were cold and hard like rocks in the cold wind. Their hands were frozen in midair and did not fall for a long time. There were two people standing in the hall. One of them was Ji Wuxiang, and the other was wearing a mask. Tang Zheng recognized him at a glance. He exclaimed, "My lord." The masked man was the Great Lord. Tang Zheng had fought him several times, so he was very familiar with the mask. Hearing the voice, the Great Lord and Ji Wuxiang turned their heads at the same time. When they saw Tang Zheng, the Great Lord exclaimed, "Tang Zheng, it's you again. Why are you everywhere?" His voice was filled with endless anger. When Ji Wuxiang saw Tang Zheng, his expression relaxed. His tense expression also relaxed a little. "My lord, I've been looking for you for a long time. You're finally willing to show yourself," Tang Zheng said without backing down. "Humph, I was looking for you. What did you do to my Azure Dragon Hall's consecrated Shen Yin?" the Great Lord asked coldly. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. "Do you want to see her? I can help you and let you meet. Could it be that you killed her?" "That's impossible." "How could you kill her? You imprisoned her, didn't you?" Tang Zheng's head moved. The Great Lord seemed to have known that Shen Yin could seal herself to protect her life. That's why he ran away so unscrupulously. "If you don't answer, I'll take it as a yes. Today you don't have any other helpers. You're not my opponent. I'll take care of you once and for all," the Great Lord said murderously. Ji Wuxiang shouted, "Who said that young Master Tang doesn't have any helpers? Although I, Ji Wuxiang, am not that talented, I can still help young Master Tang. Ji Wuxiang, even now, you're still stubborn. Do you really think I won't kill you?" the Great Lord scolded. "In order to get the heavenly chess, are you willing to kill me?" Ji Wuxiang asked jokingly. He clearly knew what his biggest reliance was. The heavenly chess was his own creation. If others wanted to get the heavenly chess, they would have to dig it out bit by bit from his head. They wouldn't kill him immediately. "Your heavenly chess is only SOSO. It can't even trap me, let alone deal with others. I think it's better not to use it," the Great Lord said disdainfully. Ji Wuxiang was unmoved. Although the Great Lord was belittling the heavenly chess, he wasn't prepared to refute. On the other hand, when Tang Zheng heard this, his heart skipped a beat, and he immediately understood what was going on. Ji Wuxiang and the others were able to hold on until now because they had set up the heavenly chess to resist the Great Lord. However, according to what Ji Wuxiang said, wasn't the heavenly chess very powerful? Why couldn't it trap the Great Lord? Instead, they were forced to retreat again and again. The Great Lord stared at Tang Zheng with burning eyes, saying, Tang Zheng, if you hand over consecrated Shenyan, then I can let you die a quick death. Tang Zheng snorted and lightly spat out 2 words, dream on, then I'll let you know the taste of death. The Great Lord stretched out his hand and rushed towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng hurriedly stabbed out with his sword. In an instant, the aura of heaven and earth changed greatly. No matter how the sword qi danced, countless sword marks appeared on the ground. As for Ji Wuxiang and the other Go players, they were like small boats in a storm, bobbing up and down with the waves. It was very dangerous. Suddenly, Ji Wuxiang shouted, Fector. At the same time, the Go players began to move. The Go pieces in their hands landed heavily. Bang! The sound of the Go pieces making contact with the chessboard was exceptionally crisp. Before the sound had faded away, a mysterious energy surged out from the chessboard, spreading throughout the entire Go club. The aura of this small world had undergone a tremendous change. If one looked from the outside, they would see that the Go club hadn't changed at all. There wasn't even the slightest change. However, the inside of the Go club had undergone a myriad of changes. Tang Zheng's senses were very sharp. He immediately noticed this. After fending off the Great Lord with his sword, he couldn't help but look at Ji Wuxiang and the other Go players. He saw that Ji Wuxiang's expression was solemn and even had a murderous aura. He was like a general in ancient times who commanded thousands of troops and horses. The Go players were like his subordinates. The Go players also changed. Although they were still as solemn as statues, their expressions were obviously more relaxed. It was obvious that they had been under a lot of pressure at the beginning. They held the Go pieces in their hands and were floating in the air. It seemed like they would place their Go pieces at any time. Tang Zheng's head moved. He gradually understood. Ji Wuxiang's Fector earlier was probably the order to place the Go pieces or even the position of the Go pieces. However, he didn't know what it meant exactly. After the Go pieces were placed, the aura of heaven and earth changed. This was enough to show how extraordinary celestial chess was. It could actually cause the aura of heaven and earth to change. It was truly extraordinary for a Go game to have such power. Tang Zheng didn't underestimate celestial chess like the Great Lord. Instead, because of this change, he treated celestial chess differently and had a higher opinion of it. The Great Lord had seen this change in the previous battle, so he was already used to it. The aura of heaven and earth changed more and more violently. Suddenly, Tang Zheng felt a chill. He felt something and looked at the Great Lord. The Great Lord's expression changed. He shouted, "You're doing it again." Bam! With a muffled sound, it was as if a tyrannical force had struck the High Lord's body. He quickly retreated, leaving a long mark on the ground. The floor was like the earth that had been plowed, turning up one after another. What a tyrannical force! I can't guard against it. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright. This change was beyond his expectations. He asked himself honestly, if he was in the Great Lord's position, he definitely wouldn't be able to block this attack. Most importantly, this attack was invisible. There was no trace of it at all. By the time he noticed it, it was already too late to guard against it. Is this the power of celestial chess? Tang Zheng muttered to himself. Celestial chess's attack was invisible, but its power was so great. It was indeed too terrifying. It made one's hair stand on end. The Great Lord wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes shone with a terrifying light from behind the mask. He shouted himself hoarse, "I'm going to break your celestial chess today." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed out. This time, he wasn't targeting Tang Zheng. Instead, he directly attacked Ji Wuxiang. Obviously, in his heart, celestial chess was a bigger threat than Tang Zheng. Celestial Jade. Ji Wuxiang opened his mouth again. This time, he didn't seem to be as relaxed as before. These 2 words burst out from his throat with great difficulty. Those chess players moved again. This time, their movements were very slow. It was as if they were resisting an invisible force. Tang Zheng saw everything clearly. He couldn't help but be amazed. This was a huge difference from before. As an outsider, he didn't know the reason behind it. Bam! Chapter 1041. The chess piece landed, and a sudden change occurred. A tyrannical force once again struck the High Lord's body, and blood seeped out from under his clothes, forming a dark red patch. You! The High Lord gasped for breath, his breathing became extremely hurried and chaotic, and he was actually unable to say a complete sentence. He propped himself up with his palm on the ground, turned into a ray of light, and fiercely rushed towards Ji Wuxiang. Stop! Tang Zheng shouted loudly, the sun-shooting arrow and heaven-shocking bow in his hands. The bowstring trembled, and the sun-shooting arrow flew out like a meteor, arriving in front of Ji Wuxiang in the blink of an eye. Ji Wuxiang's face changed. How did your sun-shooting arrow become so powerful? Tang Zheng sneered. With a thought, the speed of the sun-shooting arrow increased. The High Lord flipped in the air, the sun-shooting arrow brushing past his scalp. However, before he could rejoice, he saw the sun-shooting arrow turn back in midair. His expression changed greatly as he looked at the sun-shooting arrow and Tang Zheng in disbelief. This was even more powerful than he had expected. Seeing the sun-shooting arrow flying over again, and Ji Wuxiang opening his mouth, as if he was about to speak again, his expression turned cold. He looked at Tang Zheng hatefully, then looked at Ji Wuxiang unwillingly, turned around and left. Like a whirlwind, he soared into the sky and flew over the courtyard wall. Delta, boom! The sun-shooting arrow missed and shot into the corner of the wall. After a loud sound, a huge hole appeared at the foot of the wall, and gravel flew everywhere. Tang Zheng stomped his foot in hatred, and said indignantly, "The High Lord is too shameless." Once he noticed that something was wrong, he actually ran away. Is he addicted to being a deserter? Last time he ran away, this time he ran away again. Tang Zheng was very clear that the High Lord was not completely afraid of the power of the sun-shooting arrow. Although the sun-shooting arrow was a sacred weapon, with Tang Zheng's strength, it was not enough to truly threaten the High Lord. What he was afraid of was clearly Ji Wuxiang and Tang Zheng working together. With the sky chess and Tang Zheng attacking together, the power would naturally increase greatly, and even the High Lord would not dare to underestimate them. The other chess players were drenched in sweat, as if they had just been fished out of the water. Their stiff faces finally revealed a trace of relaxation. It was obvious that the battle just now was a huge test for them. Young Master Tang, thank you for your timely arrival. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to see tomorrow's sunrise. Ji Wuxiang heaved a long sigh and expressed his gratitude. Tang Zheng shook his head slightly. President Ji is too serious. Your sky chess is very powerful. Even if I did not come, it might not have been defeated. Ji Wuxiang smiled bitterly. Young Master Tang, you only saw the surface, but not the inside. Although it looked like we could still hold on, without your help, we definitely would not have been able to hold on for long. Tang Zheng frowned and asked, why, didn't you say that the sky chess is very powerful? The High Lord wanted to use the sky chess to deal with Tang Zheng and the others, including Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi. It was clear that the sky chess was very powerful. How could it not be defeated by the High Lord? This did not make sense. Ji Wuxiang said resentfully, you only know one part of the story, but you don't know the whole story. It's true that the heavenly chess is powerful, but we didn't unleash the true power of the heavenly chess just now. What we unleashed was only the tip of the iceberg. To unleash the true power of the heavenly chess, we need very complicated and strict conditions. Oh, I'd like to hear more. What did President Ji mean by Fector and Merak just now? Tang Zheng asked curiously, staring at Ji Wuxiang with a burning gaze. Ji Wuxiang did not hesitate and said openly, this is the sky chess's moves. Fector and Merak represent each move. There are 7 moves in the sky chess, namely Dub, Merak, Fector, Megrez, Aliath, Miza, and Alcade. Every move had all kinds of internal connections and changes. Only those who practiced the game every day could master its mysteries and exert the corresponding power. I am the core of the sky chess. All the chess players listen to my orders to place their pieces and move so that they can use its great power. The power of the sky chess can be big or small, it can be limited to a courtyard, or it can be expanded to a city. Tang Zheng nodded, suddenly enlightened. No wonder, I didn't notice anything strange outside the Go Club just now, so many passers-by did not notice anything. However, once you enter the Go Club, it's a completely different scene, a completely different world. President G is truly a genius. Although I only saw the tip of the iceberg of the sky chest today, it has already left a deep impression on me. I believe the High Lord feels the same way. Young Master Tang, you flatter me. The sky chess is indeed powerful, but it's only a half-finished product now. The High Lord will definitely have designs on the sky chess. Although I stopped him once, I might not be able to stop him a second time. Don't be afraid of thieves stealing, but be afraid of thieves remembering. Ji Wuxiang said helplessly. Then why don't you seize the time to set up the sky chess? When the time comes, even if the High Lord comes to attack, he might not be able to get anything out of it. Tang Zheng disagreed. Ji Wuxiang fell silent, his expression fluctuating as he hesitated to speak. Tang Zheng looked at him with furrowed brows, saying, President Ji, if you have something to say, just say it. There's no need to beat around the bush. Ji Wuxiang stared at Tang Zheng without blinking for a long time before saying, Since young Master Tang is so straightforward, then I won't be shy anymore. I hope young Master Tang can lend me a hand and let the sky chess be truly completed. When the time comes, no matter how powerful the High Lord is, he won't be able to threaten us anymore. Tang Zheng did not expect Ji Wuxiang to raise such a suggestion. For a moment, he did not know how to answer. He had always been wary of Ji Wuxiang, and Ji Wuxiang's words clearly did not treat him as an outsider. If he helped Ji Wuxiang, then he would definitely have more opportunities to understand the sky chess. In fact, Tang Zheng was also quite interested in the sky chess. Ji Wuxiang made it sound so powerful, but Tang Zheng did not understand the principles behind it. If he had a grudge with Ji Wuxiang in the future, then wouldn't Ji Wuxiang also use the sky chess to deal with him? If he knew some of the key points and mysteries of the sky chess, then perhaps he could counter Ji Wuxiang. The most important thing was that he had Kai Yu and the inner demons in his body. These two were undoubtedly knowledgeable and insightful. Even if he could not find any clues, these two would definitely learn a lot and tell him. At that time, it would be equivalent to him knowing. The inner demons urged, Young man, agree to his request. This sky chess is very interesting. I would like to see what exactly is going on. Kai Yu coldly humphed and said with dissatisfaction, just deliberately mystifying. The inner demons retorted, Kai Yu, don't go against your conscience just because you came to save him today. This sky chess is something neither you nor I have ever seen before. Don't you want to pry into its mysteries? Kai Yu was silent. The inner demons had spoken his mind. Haha, young man, you see, he has nothing to say. This means that he has no way to refute me. My opinion is to agree to his request and then figure out the mysteries of the sky chess. Perhaps you will be able to use the sky chess in the future. Wouldn't that be a good thing? There is no harm in learning more. This saying has been passed down since ancient times. Naturally, there is a reason for it. So be it. I would like to see what is so great about this sky chess. I don't want to see if it is just a trick to fool people in the end, Kai Yu said indignantly. Tang Zheng was silent for a long time. He had already made his decision. Since these two were in favor of this, then agreeing would definitely be more useful than refusing. Ji Wuxiang stared straight at Tang Zheng, waiting for his answer. Okay, I agree. But I don't know how to play the sky chess, so I may not be able to help you much. Tang Zheng said without batting an eyelid. Ji Wuxiang was immediately overjoyed. His eyes lit up as he impatiently said, Young Master Tang is too modest. With your help, this sky chess will definitely be completed sooner. At that time, you will be able to see the true face of the sky chess. Haha, then I will wait and see. What do you want to do next? Tang Zheng smiled faintly. Ji Wuxiang turned his head and looked around. He pointed at the messy courtyard and said, I will first tidy up this place. Although the Go Club has been destroyed, the most important foundation is still here. So in a few days, we will be able to start setting up the sky chess. During this time, do you need my help? No need. How could I trouble young Master Tang with such a small matter? Tang Zheng nodded and glanced at the other Go players. They had once again turned into puppets, sitting quietly in front of the Go board and playing without any distractions. At this time, Tang Zheng no longer dared to underestimate these seemingly weak Go players. When they worked together, the power that burst forth was intimidating. Then I will take my leave first. If there is anything else, we will contact each other again. Tang Zheng cupped his hands and took his leave. Ji Wuxiang walked him to the door. When he opened the door of the Go Club, the clamor outside immediately traveled in. Just now, the inside of the Go Club was incomparably quiet, as if it was another world. Now that the door was opened, the two worlds seemed to merge into one. It was truly incomparably wonderful. Tang Zheng could not help but look forward to the coming cooperation even more. After leaving the Go Club, Tang Zheng asked Kai Yu and the inner demons if the Great Desolate Aura was still there. Kai Yu said snappily, "Do you think the other party is an idiot? Since he has gotten rid of you, he will definitely think of a way to hide. Why would he still show his face?" Tang Zheng had also expected this result, but he could not guess who in the Ye family had been possessed. How could that be possible? There were so many people in the Ye family, that would be too difficult. Moreover, if he went to the Ye family again, it would be useless. He had already caused a ruckus in the Ye family. If he went again, it might cause some sort of disturbance, and instead, it would cause Yi Tianlei's family to be in a dilemma. There are so many things that escaped from the prehistoric heavenly tomb, and we have only found a few of them. Could it be that you really have no other choice but to sit at home and wait? Tang Zheng asked unhappily. Kai Yu and the inner demons naturally sensed his displeasure and hurriedly comforted him. That might not be the case. If you go to the famous mountains or walk around the various cities, maybe we can find more of the Great Desolate Aura. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes speechlessly. This is like looking for a needle in a haystack, do you know that? Where do I have that much time? Kai Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he suggested, didn't you already take the Li Palace under your command? Li Palace's eyes and ears are all over the world, and they are well informed. Let them gather abnormal information from all over the world, such as who suddenly became powerful, or what strange event that science cannot explain. This is a sign, and if we follow the map and identify the targets one by one, we will naturally be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. Chapter 1042. Tang Zheng hurriedly dialed Li Xiaotian's number. With a beep, she picked up the phone and a pleasantly surprised voice came through. Tang Zheng, it's you. How have you been? I'm very good. The Li Palace is already on the right track. Everything is proceeding in an orderly manner. The intelligence system has already been restored 80 to 90%. When Granny Li left with her people, the intelligence system was damaged to a certain extent. However, Li Xiaotian's ability was outstanding. It didn't take long for it to be restored. Moreover, she established a strict intelligence network that was more precise and accurate than before. It had to be said that her ability was truly outstanding. I have something for you to do. Tang Zheng went straight to the point. Li Xiaotian was very happy. This showed her value, so she asked, what is it? Give the order to collect all kinds of mysterious and strange events throughout the country. Tang Zheng finished explaining in detail. With Li Xiaotian's intelligence, she immediately understood and said, don't worry, I will give the order and report it back to you as soon as possible. Don't be too anxious. This is not something that can be done in a short period of time. Tang Zheng comforted her. After hesitating for a moment, he said, you are alone in the Li Palace. Take care of yourself. Don't tire yourself out. This sentence was more effective than any elixir. Li Xiaotian was very happy. She kept shaking her head and said, I'm not tired. I'm willing to do anything for you. Cough cough. Tang Zheng dryly coughed and said a few perfunctory words before quickly hanging up the phone. He could guess a bit of Li Xiaotian's thoughts, but he didn't want to think too much about it. Tang Zheng returned to his house and saw two familiar figures in the courtyard. He hurriedly went up and greeted them cordially. Uncle Yi, Aunt Feng, why are you here? Yi Tianlei's face was dignified. He looked deeply at Tang Zheng and didn't say a word. Feng Xinyang's expression was normal. She looked at Tang Zheng with a smile and said, "Little handsome brother, where did you go this time?" "I went out of town yesterday and just came back." "It's been hard on you, running around everywhere." "I heard you went back to school." "Yes, this is Grandpa's wish." "You really are a filial and good child." Feng Xinyang looked at him with a smile. The look in her eyes was more doting than when she looked at her own son. Tang Zheng had long been accustomed to Feng Xinyang's style of doing things. He understood that they wouldn't visit him without a reason, so he went straight to the point and asked, "Is there something wrong?" Feng Xinyang laughed heartily and patted Yi Tianlei's shoulder, saying, "Isn't it your Uncle Yi who insisted on dragging me here? In fact, that matter has nothing to do with him. He's just a dog catching a mouse and meddling in other people's business. People don't even appreciate his kindness." Tang Zheng looked suspiciously at Yi Tianlei and said, "Uncle Yi, if there's something then just say it. You're being too polite with me. That's treating me like an outsider." Yi Tianlei let out a long sigh and said, "All right then, I'll just say it. Today I heard news that you went to the Yi residence to cause a ruckus. Is that true?" Tang Zheng nodded, "Yes. Can I ask the reason?" Yi Tianlei's brows were tangled. Tang Zheng looked at him thoughtfully and instantly understood the purpose of his trip. Yi Tianlei was actually a truly good person. Even though he had broken off relations with the Yi residents, he still missed the Yi residents deep in his heart. He couldn't be as resolute as Feng Xinyang and Yi Dingdang. Therefore, he had always been silently paying attention to the Yi residents' movements. Today, Tang Zheng caused such a big ruckus that it naturally couldn't escape his eyes. That's why he came to ask Tang Zheng. This wasn't a punitive expedition, but to clarify the reason and see if he could mediate. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "Since Uncle Yi asked, then I will naturally tell you everything I know and will not hold back. Back then, there was a prehistoric heavenly tomb in the 10,000 huge mountains. Because the restrictions were broken, many creatures and magic treasures escaped. In the past, I never paid attention to it, but now I find out that these things that escaped are quite dangerous, and are good at seizing bodies and rebirth. In other words, they occupy other people's bodies, and with a shake of their bodies, they become living people again. These guys all came from the ancient era and are very powerful. Once they are allowed to truly recover and grow stronger, they will be a huge threat to this world." Yi Tianlei and Feng Xinyang were both shocked. They never thought that there would be so many hidden matters, and immediately asked, "Then what does this have to do with the Yi residents?" "These things that escaped will emit a desolate aura. I finally found the whereabouts of this desolate aura in the Yi residence, so I barged into the Yi residence to investigate." Tang Zheng explained. Yi Tianlei suddenly realized, and said thoughtfully, "You mean that someone in the Yi residence has been possessed?" "Yes." "Who is it?" Tang Zheng shook his head regretfully. "The other party is very cunning, and because of Yi Xuanji and Yi Ku's obstruction, I was unable to find out who was possessed, and the other party has already escaped without a trace, so it will be even more difficult to track them down." Feng Xinyang frowned. "Then this guy is really cunning, to be able to escape your pursuit. Are you eager to know the result?" "Of course. Could it be that Aunt Feng has a way?" Feng Xinyang pointed at Yi Tianlei and said, "Although he doesn't have much ability, investigating a person in the Yi residence shouldn't be a big problem. According to what you said, after this person has been possessed, his behavior will be very abnormal. Even if the other party hides well, there will still be clues, especially with the people who normally interact with each other. Don't you think so?" Tang Zheng's head lit up, and he looked at Feng Xinyang in pleasant surprise, and said, "Aunt Feng is wise." Feng Xinyang laughed loudly. "What wise idea do I have? It's just a small matter." Saying this, her arm touched Yi Tianlei, and said, "Don't you think so? This small matter must be done immediately when we go back, and we must find out who was possessed in the shortest time possible." Yi Tianlei nodded his head, and after a long time he said, "Little Zheng, you are our family's benefactor, so I will naturally take care of this small matter, but if it involves a specific person, what are you going to do?" Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and asked, "Does Uncle Yi have any misgivings?" "Little Zheng, I am after all someone from the Ye family, so if it involves a specific person, I hope that you will be able to deal with it at your discretion." Yi Tianlei said hesitantly. Feng Xinyang heard this, and directly jumped up. Yi Tianlei, what's wrong with you? How did the Ye family treat us? Did you not see it? Now you are saying good things for them. Are you a pig, so stupid? Feng Xinyang was greatly angered, and was flustered and exasperated. Seeing this, Tang Zheng hurriedly comforted her. Aunt Feng, don't be impatient. Uncle Yi is a righteous person, so of course I understand what he is thinking. Only, Uncle Yi, although I am of the younger generation, there are some things that I must say. Although your intentions are good, the other party may not accept your kindness. Yi Tianlei's face became embarrassed. Tang Zheng did not stop there, and instead continued to say, this matter is of great importance, so no matter who is involved, I will not back down. I must find this person. Also, this person has already been possessed, so the original person is already dead. This body is occupied by someone else, and is not someone from the Ye family. Little handsome brother, don't listen to his nonsense. He is soft-hearted and will never change. Feng Xinyang said without good feelings. Tang Zheng smiled and said, Uncle Yi is a kind person, so he has this kind of thinking. This is better than many vicious and merciless people. Feng Xinyang's lips slightly raised, and she smiled, her face brimming with happiness. Little handsome brother, do you know why I chose him that year? Why? Tang Zheng gossiped and asked. Feng Xinyang glanced at Yi Tianlei. It's because of his stupidity that he moves people's hearts more than other smart people. Tang Zheng laughed loudly. That's right, so Uncle Yi's starting point is good. Uncle Yi, I will leave this matter to you. Find out who has been acting strangely, then we will know who the enemy is. When the time comes, it will be easy to deal with. There is no need to implicate the entire Ye family, what do you say? Yi Tianlei looked pensive. What you say makes sense. The way of the world is becoming more and more complicated. I can't see through it at all. Uncle Yi is too modest. If Uncle Yi and Aunt Feng are in the mood for leisure, once this matter is over, I will invite you to an island for a vacation. The scenery there is beautiful, and there is no smog like the capital. It can be used to relax. Tang Zheng suggested. Feng Xinyang happily agreed. Little handsome brother, you are the one with the heart, unlike this guy. I have been with him for most of my life, but he doesn't know how to take me on a vacation. I have heard Ding Dang mention your island before. I have wanted to go for a long time. Good, then it's a deal. Little handsome brother, let's go over there. I have something to say to you. Feng Xinyang pulled Tang Zheng to the side. What can't you say in front of me? Yi Tianlei speechlessly rolled his eyes. Feng Xinyang glanced at him and said, this is a private conversation between me and little handsome brother. You don't need to know. Go to the side. After saying this, she pulled Tang Zheng to a secluded area. Tang Zheng curiously looked at her and asked, Aunt Feng, what is it that has to be so grand? Feng Xinyang looked at Tang Zheng. The more she looked, the more satisfied she was. When he was still a high school student, she had already set her mind on him. Now it seems that her vision was truly unique. If it wasn't for her constant perseverance and encouragement, perhaps that silly daughter of hers would have already had no fate with him. As for the unclear relationship between Tang Zheng and other women, she was very clear about it. However, what kind of person was she? How could she let her daughter withdraw because of such a small matter? On the contrary, she would encourage her daughter to compete even more. Only a truly outstanding man would be able to attract the attention of so many women. Feng Xinyang's daughter had never been afraid of challenges and competition. Bravely moving forward was the style she should have. However, ever since the last time she let Yi Dingdang return home and had a long talk with her, Feng Xinyang also realized that her daughter was facing a crisis. The most important thing was that the women by Tang Zheng's side were too outstanding. Not to mention Wu and Li Xiaotian, these two were originally experts of Li Palace and martial organization. She had to admit that they were stronger than Yi Dingdang. Chapter 1043. Seeing that Feng Xinyang was staring at him, Tang Zheng thought that something big was going on. He quickly restrained his expression and became serious. Little handsome brother, how are things going with you and Dingdang? Tang Zheng was greatly embarrassed. Why would she ask such a question? If it was someone else, he could refuse to answer. However, the other party was Feng Xinyang. He simply could not refuse. After thinking for a while, he said, "We're pretty good." Pretty good? Why did I hear that she has some conflicts with that Princess Anne? Tang Zheng's eyes widened as he thought to himself, "You even know this?" Feng Xinyang gave him a look that said, "I've already seen through everything. Don't lie to me." She continued, "Ding Dang is an impatient girl. She doesn't know how to beat around the bush. If she does anything wrong, you have to bear with her." Tang Zheng nodded his head like he was pounding garlic. "Aunt Feng, don't worry. Ding Dang is very sensible." Feng Xinyang's mouth finally revealed a trace of a smile and said, "If that's the case, then I can rest assured. Some things should be settled as soon as possible. You young people are impatient. I still have to worry about these things for you." Tang Zheng was confused and looked at her blankly. Feng Xinyang coughed and said in an earth-shattering manner, "Since both of you are in love with each other, and we as your parents don't have any opinions, we really want to see both of you together. So, let's find an auspicious day." "Aunt Feng, what do you mean?" The more Tang Zheng listened, the more he felt that something was wrong, especially when he heard the words auspicious day. He immediately thought of the beating of gongs and drums to welcome the bride, so he immediately interrupted her. Feng Xinyang smiled and said, "Isn't this for your own good? Find an auspicious date and you two can get engaged. Then after you graduate, you can get married. Isn't this a wonderful thing?" Tang Zheng was dumbfounded. His mouth opened so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in it. He looked at Feng Xinyang in disbelief. He never expected that she was here to urge him to get married. Feng Xinyang's actions had always been unpredictable, but Tang Zheng had never thought that she would actually come to urge him to get married. This was too fierce. For a moment, he didn't know how to answer. Feng Xinyang urged, "Little handsome boy, I know you're shy, but you're an adult. What's there to be shy about? I'll take care of it for you. You don't have to worry at all." "Wait, Aunt Feng," Tang Zheng hurriedly shouted, "Aunt Feng, don't be hasty in this matter. Ding Dang and I are still students. This will have a bad influence." Feng Xinyang didn't find it strange and said, "What does it matter? Nowadays there are even college students who have children. It's just an engagement." Tang Zheng coughed a few times and almost choked on his own saliva. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "Aunt Feng, I know you're good to me, but I'm really not mentally prepared. Let's wait a little longer." Feng Xinyang's smile gradually disappeared. She stared at Tang Zheng and seriously said, "Little handsome boy, are you dissatisfied with Ding Dang?" "Absolutely not." Tang Zheng shook his head like a rattle drum. "Since you're not dissatisfied, then all the more you have to be together. You have to be together in a legitimate manner." Feng Xinyang said. "Aunt Feng, this matter is really too urgent." Seeing Tang Zheng continue to evade, Feng Xinyang knew that if she continued to push things would become worse. She resentfully said, "Fine, but when you graduate, I'll look for you again. At that time, you can't use your age as an excuse. But, hehe, I can accept it if you give me a little grandson in the next few years." Tang Zheng's legs went soft and he almost fell to the ground. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at her. "Is Yi Ding Dang your biological daughter? How could you cheat your own daughter like this?" However, when it came to giving birth, he became vigilant. He didn't use any safety measures and the women didn't fall for it. This was a great fortune. He couldn't be so willful in the future. Tang Zheng found an excuse to escape. He was afraid that she would say something shocking. Feng Xinyang looked at his receding figure and helplessly shook her head. She had to think of another way to deal with this matter slowly. Suddenly, he had an idea and looked at the villa beside him. "That's right, how could I be so stupid? Taking care of the little handsome brother is not easy, but I can first take care of the old Gramps. When the time comes that the old Gramps will acknowledge Ding Dong's identity and position, then wouldn't everything be set in stone?" Her eyes lit up. She pulled Yi Tianlei and rushed to the villa beside her. Tang Zheng let out a long sigh of relief. Feng Xinyang's vigor was beyond his imagination. Looking at his frightened face, Marshall walked over and asked, "What happened to you?" Tang Zheng squeezed out a smile and said, "It's nothing." Nana jumped from the second floor like a little swallow and directly flew into his arms. She said intimately, "Big brother, quickly take me to play. I have to go to school in a few days. At that time, I won't have time to play with Big brother." Nana was about to go to primary school and had already contacted the school. Therefore, this was her last time to play. Tang Zheng moved his head and said, "All right, let's go outside and play. Big brother is going to set up a formation. You can watch from the side, okay?" "What is a formation?" Nana tilted her head and asked curiously. Nana is still young. She will know when she grows up. "Oh," Nan replied, a little disappointed. Marshall asked curiously, "What kind of formation are you going to set up?" Tang Zheng pointed to the large area outside and said, "These buildings are all inhabited by our people. For safety reasons, I am going to set up a formation. In addition, the smog in the capital is so serious. I also plan to add a spirit gathering array to improve the air here." Marshall nodded happily. "That's a good idea. I'll take a look with you and broaden my horizons." Tang Zheng originally only planned to set up a spirit gathering array to improve the air, but after thinking about it, he felt that it was far from enough. This place had been attacked time and time again. If there was a defensive formation, once the formation was activated, it would be able to protect everyone, as if an external enemy had invaded. Although he did not know many formations, he could not beat the inner demons and Caillou. These two people had countless formations in their minds, so any one of them would be enough. The few of them arrived outside the villa and walked around a few villas. Then, he had an idea in his heart. "Caillou, if the great heavenly cycle primordial array is not as powerful as you say, I will look for you to settle the score," Tang Zheng said. Caillou seemed to have been greatly insulted as he indignantly said, "Tang Zheng, it's fine if you don't know anything, but you actually dare to look down on my great heavenly cycle primordial array. Do you know that my camp was set up with this array? No enemy can quietly break through the array." Tang Zheng smiled and did not refute, waiting to see how it would turn out. The inner demons did not refute this time. Instead, they helped Caillou and said, "I'll say something fair. This great heavenly cycle primordial array is indeed a first-class formation." Caillou did not exaggerate. "Inner demons, you're finally willing to speak the truth for once," Caillou said. The inner demons retorted, "When have I ever not spoken the truth?" "Nana, look carefully." Tang Zheng took out a piece of jade and flicked it with his finger. Whoosh! The jade stone flew out and entered a bush, disappearing without a trace. "Big brother, is this how you set up a formation?" Tang Zheng smiled and nodded his head. "The formation is a very complicated system, and in order to have the corresponding function, one must have the support of energy. These jade stones contain a certain amount of energy, and when we set up these jade stones according to a certain position and location, once the formation is activated, it will be able to play the corresponding role. But setting up a formation is a very delicate job, especially the more complicated the formation is, the more it requires that there is not the slightest mistake. Otherwise, the formation will not succeed." Nana nodded her head as if she understood. She clenched her snow-white teeth as if she wanted to firmly remember these words in her heart. Marshall also thoughtfully remembered everything. She was a martial artist and could not set up a formation like Tang Zheng. Moreover, her interest in formations was far weaker than her interest in martial arts. She believed that the best defense was offense, and no matter how powerful a formation was, it was still a defensive line. Just looking at Tang Zheng's serious expression, the sunlight falling on his body, giving him a very enchanting feeling. "Big brother, can I try?" Suddenly, Nana asked restlessly. Tang Zheng muttered to himself for a moment, then placed a jade stone in her hand and said, "Nana, put the jade stone in that place." Looking at the direction Tang Zheng pointed at, Nana held her breath and silently circulated her energy. Imitating Tang Zheng, she flicked her finger. Whoosh! The jade stone turned into a ray of white light and flew into the target area. "Wow, I also succeeded. Big brother, do you think I did well?" Nana excitedly jumped up. Tang Zheng nodded his head in approval, patted her little head and praised, "Nana is very smart, you can do it as soon as I say it." He had to admit that Nana was already a world of difference compared to other children of the same age. Just that move just now, no matter if it was strength or angle, it could be considered beautiful. Suddenly, he had an idea and said, "Nana, when you go to school, you can't show these skills in front of other people, otherwise you will scare the other children." Nana seemed to understand but not understand. She looked up at Tang Zheng and said, "Why?" "Because you are stronger than them. We can't use these skills to bully the weak, do you understand?" Nana thought for a moment and said, "Is it like the heroes on TV, we have to help the weak, so we can't bully the weak?" Tang Zheng laughed. "Nana is very smart, you even learned the phrase help the weak and help the strong. Yen, we are not afraid of danger or the strong, but we can't use the strong to bully the weak." Nana nodded her head. "Nana understands, I will definitely remember Big Brother's words." Tang Zheng unhurriedly completed the rest of the work. All of the jade stones were inserted into the corresponding locations. He stood in the middle of the array and activated his true chi. Circulating his power, his 10 fingers slightly bent, and coincidentally flicked open at the same time. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, 10 streams of true chi burst out from his fingers and entered 10 different directions at the same time. Hua. Chapter 1044. Vice Principal Pang's face turned red as he roared, "You're Tang Zheng, right? Not only did you disregard the law, but you also dared to talk back to me. As the vice principal, I can tell you right now that Yanqing University doesn't need students like you." Tang Zheng sneered, "Is that so?" "Yes. Yanqing University doesn't need students like you who disregard the law and respect their elders. You can just wait to be expelled." Vice Principal Pang's voice was getting louder and louder. It was even a little shrill. It seemed that this was the only way to show off his authority. "I also hit someone. You can expel me too." Fang Shisha stepped forward and stood beside Tang Zheng. Her face was full of anger. Seeing her beloved being wronged, one could imagine the anger in her heart. "I also hit someone. Expel me if you have the guts. If you don't, you're a coward." Yi Dingdong's small face was red from anger. She wanted nothing more than to punch Vice Principal Pang in the face. Vice Principal Pang was dazzled by the two beauties who stepped forward. They were simply too beautiful. If it were any other time, he would definitely hold their hands and teach them with all his heart and soul. However, Yi Dingdong's clamor made him feel embarrassed. If he didn't expel them, he would be a coward. He didn't want to be called a coward on his first day as a new official. He was about to passionately reprimand them and make them realize their mistake. However, a person suddenly appeared from the crowd. His body was as tall as a mountain. He shouted angrily, "I also hit someone. You can expel me too." Tang Zheng turned his head to look, so it was the dorm's second brother, Do Long Sinosaurus, and the others were also welcoming the new students. When they heard the commotion, they ran over and happened to see this scene. Blood rushed to his head and he didn't hesitate to stand up for his brother. Vice Principal Pang looked at Sinosaurus in surprise. "You clearly squeezed in from the back. How could you be the one who hit someone?" Before he could figure out the situation, he saw two people squeezing in. Wang Shiji and Zhu Yang had a tacit understanding and said in unison, "I also hit someone, you should fire me too." Vice Principal Pang's face darkened. He finally understood that these people were in cahoots with Tang Zheng. They were here to kick up a fuss and embarrass him. Who was Vice Principal Pang? How could such a scene scare him? Therefore, he said in a deep voice, "All right, since you've admitted it, then wait for the school's punishment. Yanqing University doesn't need students like you." As soon as his voice fell, a few more people squeezed in, but they were all beautiful girls. Each of them was like a fearless warrior, standing behind Tang Zheng without hesitation, and said in a loud and resonant voice, "I also hit people, you should fire me too." Tang Zheng looked at them gratefully. They were Yi Dingdong's roommates. The few of them nodded encouragingly at Tang Zheng. His actions today had truly won their respect and recognition. Vice Principal Pang was at a loss. Just who was this brat? Why did so many people stand out for him? These people must be in cahoots. That's why they're so united. If it was anyone else, they would definitely admit defeat. But I've seen all kinds of storms. You guys are too inexperienced to play such tricks in front of me. Vice Principal Pang snorted in disdain. All right, since that's the case, then I'll fulfill your wishes. Vice Principal Pang roared majestically. He felt like an ancient emperor who ruled over the life and death of others. This feeling was extremely satisfying. The other students looked at each other with red eyes. Even the girls stood out for injustice. Could it be that they, as grown men, were not as brave as the girls? One by one, the students clenched their fists. Suddenly, a person took a few steps forward and stood behind Tang Zheng. He said fearlessly, "I also hit people, you should fire me too." Vice Principal Pang was stunned as he stared at this fearless fellow with a murderous gaze. He thought to himself, "I'll fulfill your wishes." But before he could say anything, he saw students one by one walk behind Tang Zheng, loudly shouting, "I also hit people, you should also expel me." The crowd was stirred up and their voices rose and fell one after another. This was the most sincere expression of a student's emotions, an instinctive support, but often many people would snort in disdain, but seeing over 100 people working together to support Tang Zheng, one would know who was right and who was wrong, and what the people's hearts were. When the new students reported in, there were many parents accompanying them. When they saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel excited. It was as if they had returned to the time when they were young and full of vigor. The edges and corners that had been worn away by life over the years seemed to have grown back. With a red face, they said to their children, "Do you see that? This is the spirit of the university." Many of the new students were boiling with passion as they threw down their suitcases and rushed behind Tang Zheng. They shouted, "I also hit people, you should fire me too." When the parents saw their children's actions, not only did they not blame them, they even revealed gratified expressions. Most of the people in Huaxia had such genes and blood hidden in their bones. They just needed an opportunity to trigger it. There was no doubt that this accidental incident had become a trigger, arousing their long-hidden hot blood. Vice Principal Pang stared at the scene in disbelief as if he had been struck dumb. He never expected that the students would be so united. This kind of strength made his heart tremble as he felt a long-lost fear. However, he immediately suppressed this absurd thought. His face darkened, and he thought to himself, fanning the flames, "These students can't be allowed to stay. The law doesn't punish the majority of the people. As long as I tell them the pros and cons, these people will naturally know to be afraid." But he couldn't see the people behind him due to the dense crowd, so his voice couldn't be heard. Suddenly, he had an idea as he saw the Mercedes-Benz. He quickly climbed on top of the car and looked down at the crowd. He waved his hand and shouted, "Quiet! Everyone, quiet! Listen to me. I know that most of you are good students, so don't be bewitched by a bad student. This is irresponsible to you and your parents. Everyone, disperse. We weren't bewitched by others. We have our own judgment and sense of right and wrong. We're doing this to be responsible to ourselves and our parents." Someone refuted. "That's right. I'm the master of my life. It's not up to you to tell me what to do. Get lost. Our Yenqing University doesn't need a leader like you." "That's right. This kind of leader is the shame of Yenqing University. He's helping outsiders to suppress his own students. How shameless." Vice Principal Pang panicked when he heard the complaints. Things seemed to be out of his control and prediction. "What right do you have to be so high and mighty? What right do you have to tell us what to do? You're nothing. You don't have the right." The students were even angrier when they saw him looking down on them. Suddenly, a loud and clear voice sounded. "Rise up, people who don't want to be slaves." The voice completely ignited everyone's emotions. It was as if they had returned to the Huaxia era when they were bullied. Everyone's eyes were red and they looked at Vice Principal Pang as if he was an invader. "Rise up! Rise up! Rise up! We're united, braving the enemy's gunfire. Advance! 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 Advance!" The voice seemed to come from the chest and the heart. It was filled with endless power. It made people's blood boil and tears brim in their eyes. When the last 3 lines of advance were sung, all the students took a step forward in unison. The uniform footsteps were like the sound of iron hooves stomping on Vice Principal Pang's heart. It made his heartstrings tremble and his face turn pale. The few Koreans were completely scared silly. This earth-shattering aura and grand and resonant singing made them see the spirit of the Chinese people, the Chinese soul that made people tremble at the mere mention of the name. Park Shahoon couldn't care less about his pain. He rolled and crawled into the car and didn't dare to show his face. The arrogance from before was gone. What was left was deep shock and fear. The few of them curled up together and looked at each other, trembling. Vice Principal Pang's face turned pale. He didn't expect the students in China to be so powerful. Listening to the deafening voice, he felt as if thousands of knives were falling on his head. He suddenly had an ominous feeling. It seemed that things weren't as simple as he thought. Looking at the high and mighty Vice Principal Pang, the students' emotions reached a peak. One of them shouted, "Do you think you're superior just because you're standing so high? And those Koreans, do you think everything will be fine after they hide in the car? Smash the car and drag them out." Everyone echoed, "Yes, smash their car and drag them out. Let's see how they can still be so high and mighty." About 100 people rushed toward the 2 luxury cars. Bang! Everyone picked up the tools they had and smashed them on the car. The glass shattered and the car was dented. In a short while, it looked like the surface of the moon. Vice Principal Pang stood on the roof of the car. He was still in shock. He felt like he was a small boat in the middle of the ocean. He could be overturned by the waves at any time and be smashed to pieces. At this time, he didn't have the energy to rebuke. Even the security guards were scared. They kept retreating and didn't dare to stop them. Vice Principal Pang scrambled down from the roof of the car and hid among the security guards. He trembled as he looked at the scene. He was angry and scared. "Come out. Are you a coward? Hiding in the car." Park Shahoon and the rest hid in the car. They didn't dare to come out. "If they don't come out, drag them out and smash the car door." Bang! 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 The sound of knocking on the car door was like knocking on their hearts. They were terrified to the extreme. They curled up in a ball. Without a doubt, this would be a nightmare that would accompany them for the rest of their lives. "I'll do it." Chapter 1045. Seeing that Feng Xinyang was staring at him, Tang Zheng thought that something big had happened. He quickly restrained his expression and became serious. "Little handsome brother, how are things going between you and Ding Dang?" Tang Zheng was greatly embarrassed. Why would she ask such a question? If it was someone else, he could refuse to answer. However, the other party was Feng Xinyang. He simply could not refuse. After thinking for a while, he said, "We're pretty good." "Pretty good? Why did I hear that she has some conflicts with that Princess Anne?" Tang Zheng's eyes widened as he said in his heart, "You even know this?" Feng Xinyang gave him a look that said, "I've already seen through everything. Don't lie to me." She continued, "Ding Dang is an impatient girl. She doesn't know how to beat around the bush. If she does anything wrong, you have to bear with her." Tang Zheng nodded his head like he was pounding garlic. "Aunt Feng, don't worry. Ding Dang is very sensible." Feng Xinyang's mouth finally revealed a trace of a smile and said, "If that's the case, then I can rest assured. Some things should be settled as soon as possible. You young people are impatient. I still have to worry about these things for you." Tang Zheng was confused. He looked at her blankly. Feng Xinyang coughed and said in an earth-shattering manner, "Since you two are in love with each other, we as your parents have no objections. We are very willing to see you two truly come together. So, find an auspicious date." "Aunt Feng, what do you mean?" The more Tang Zheng listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. Especially when he heard the words auspicious date, he immediately associated it with the beating of gongs and drums to welcome the bride. He immediately interrupted her. Feng Xinyang smiled and said, "Isn't this for your own good? Find an auspicious date and you two can get engaged. Then after you graduate, you can get married. Isn't this a wonderful thing?" Tang Zheng was dumbfounded. His mouth opened so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in it. He looked at Feng Xinyang in disbelief. He never expected that she was here to urge him to get married. Feng Xinyang's actions had always been unpredictable, but Tang Zheng had never thought that she would actually come to urge him to get married. This was too fierce. For a moment, he didn't know how to answer. Feng Xinyang urged, "Little handsome boy, I know you're shy, but you're an adult. What's there to be shy about? I'll take care of it for you. You don't have to worry at all." "Wait, Aunt Feng," Tang Zheng hurriedly shouted, "Aunt Feng, don't be hasty in this matter. Ding Dang and I are still students. This will have a bad influence." Feng Xinyang didn't find it strange and said, "What does this matter? Nowadays there are even university students who have children. It's just an engagement." Tang Zheng coughed a few times and almost choked on his own saliva. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "Aunt Feng, I know you're good to me, but I really wasn't mentally prepared. Let's wait a little longer." Feng Xinyang's smile gradually disappeared. She stared at Tang Zheng and seriously said, "Little handsome boy, are you dissatisfied with Ding Dang?" "Absolutely not." Tang Zheng shook his head like a rattledrum. "Since you are not dissatisfied, then all the more reason we should be together. We should be together in a proper manner." Feng Xinyang made the final decision. "Aunt Feng, this matter is too urgent." Seeing Tang Zheng continue to evade, Feng Xinyang knew that if she continued to push things would get worse. She resentfully said, "Fine, but after you graduate, I'll look for you again. At that time, you can't use your age as an excuse. But, if you guys give me a little grandson in the next few years, then I can accept it." Tang Zheng's legs went soft and he almost fell to the ground. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at her. "Is Yi Ding Dang your biological daughter? How could you cheat your daughter like this?" However, when it came to giving birth, he became vigilant. He didn't use any safety measures and none of the women were pregnant. This was a great fortune. He couldn't be so willful in the future. Tang Zheng found an excuse and fled. He was afraid that she would say something shocking. Feng Xinyang looked at his receding figure and helplessly shook her head. She had to think of another way to deal with this matter slowly. Suddenly, he had an idea and looked at the villa beside him. "That's right, how could I be so stupid? Taking care of the little handsome brother is not easy, but I can first take care of the old Gramps. When the time comes that the old Gramps will acknowledge Ding Dang's identity and position, then wouldn't everything be set in stone?" Her eyes lit up as she pulled Yi Tianlei and rushed to the villa. Tang Zheng let out a long sigh of relief. Feng Xinyang's fierceness was beyond his imagination. Looking at his frightened expression, Marshall walked over and asked, "What happened to you?" Tang Zheng squeezed out a smile and said that he was fine. Nana jumped from the second floor like a little swallow and threw herself into his arms. She affectionately said, "Brother, quickly take me out to play. In a few days, I will have to go to school. At that time, I won't have time to play with brother." Nana was about to go to primary school. She had already contacted the school, so this was her last time to play. Tang Zheng moved his head and said, "All right, let's go outside to play. Brother wants to set up a formation. You can watch from the side, okay?" "What is a formation?" Nana tilted her head and asked. "Nana is still young. When she grows up, she will naturally know." Nana made an "oh" sound and was a little disappointed. Marshall curiously asked, "What kind of formation are you going to set up?" Tang Zheng pointed to the large area outside and said, "These buildings are inhabited by our people. For safety reasons, I am going to set up a formation. In addition, the smog in the capital is so serious. I plan to add a spirit-gathering formation to improve the air here." Marshall happily nodded. "This method is not bad. I will also take a look with you and broaden my horizons." Tang Zheng originally only planned to set up a spirit-gathering formation to improve the air, but after thinking about it, he felt that it was far from enough. This place had been attacked time and time again. If there was a defensive formation, once the formation was activated, it would be able to protect everyone, as if an external enemy had invaded. Although he did not know many formations, He could not beat the inner demons and Caillou. These two people had countless formations in their minds, so any one of them would be enough. The few of them arrived outside the villa and walked around a few villas. Then, he had an idea in his heart. Caillou, if the great heavenly cycle primordial formation is not as powerful as you say, I will find you to settle the score. Tang Zheng said. Caillou seemed to have been greatly insulted as he indignantly said, Tang Zheng, it's fine if you don't know anything, but you actually dare to look down on my great heavenly cycle primordial formation. Do you know that my camp was set up with this formation? No enemy can quietly break through the formation. Tang Zheng smiled and did not refute, waiting to see how it would turn out. The inner demons did not refute this time. Instead, they helped Caillou and said, I will say something fair. This great heavenly cycle primordial formation is indeed a first-class formation. Caillou was not exaggerating. H, inner demons, you are finally willing to speak the truth for once. Caillou said. The inner demons retorted, when have I not spoken the truth? Nana, look carefully. Tang Zheng took out a piece of jade and flicked it with his finger. Whoosh. The jade flew out and sank into a bush, disappearing without a trace. Big brother, is this how you set up a formation? Tang Zheng smiled and nodded his head. The formation is a very complicated system, and to have the corresponding function, one must have the support of energy. These jade stones contain a certain amount of energy, and when we place these jade stones according to a certain position and location, once the formation is activated, it will be able to play the corresponding role. But setting up a formation is a very delicate job, especially the more complicated the formation is, the more it requires that there is not the slightest mistake. Otherwise, the formation will not succeed. Nana nodded her head as if she understood. She clenched her snow-white teeth as if she wanted to firmly remember these words in her heart. Marshall also thoughtfully remembered everything. She was a martial artist and could not set up a formation like Tang Zheng. Moreover, her interest in formations was far weaker than her interest in martial arts. She believed that the best defense was offense, and no matter how strong a formation was, it was still a defensive line. Just looking at Tang Zheng's serious expression, the sunlight falling on his body, glowing, and giving off a very enchanting feeling. Big brother, can I give it a try? Suddenly, Nana eagerly asked. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment, then handed a jade stone to her hand and said, Nana, put the jade stone in that place. Looking at the direction Tang Zheng pointed at, Nana held her breath and silently circulated her energy. Imitating Tang Zheng, she flicked her finger. Whoosh! The jade stone turned into a ray of white light and flew into the target area. Wow, I also succeeded. Big brother, do you think I did well? Nana excitedly jumped up. Tang Zheng nodded his head in approval, patted her little head, and praised, Nana is very smart, you can do it as soon as I say it. He had to admit that Nana and other children of the same age were already worlds apart. Just that move of hers, whether it was strength or angle, could be considered beautiful. Suddenly, he had an idea and said, Nana, when you go to school, you can't show these skills in front of other people, otherwise you will scare the other children. Nana seemed to understand, but not fully. She looked up at Tang Zheng and said, Why? Because you are stronger than them, we can't use these skills to bully the weak, do you understand? Nana thought for a moment and said, Is it like the heroes on TV, we have to help the weak, so we can't bully the weak? Tang Zheng laughed, Nana is very smart, you even learned the words help the weak. Ian, we are not afraid of danger or the strong, but we can't bully the weak. Nana nodded her head, Nana understands, I will definitely remember Big Brother's words. Tang Zheng unhurriedly completed the rest of the work. All of the jade stones were inserted into the corresponding locations. He stood in the middle of the array and urged his chi, circulated his martial arts, and his 10 fingers slightly bent, as if by prior agreement, he flicked them open. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, 10 streams of true chi burst out from his fingers and entered 10 different directions at the same time. Hua. Chapter 1046. The aura of the heavens and earth instantly changed, and the foul air in the air quickly melted away. A vortex appeared in the sky, and the vast and mighty spirit chi fell from the center of the vortex, directly fusing into the huge light shield. Wu took a deep breath and exclaimed, "Wow, the air is so fresh." Nana also hurriedly nodded and said, "This feels so comfortable. The sun doesn't seem so hot anymore." A cool breeze blew over. This feeling was especially obvious. It was as if they had come to another world. It was completely different from the scorching heat from before. Tang Zheng did not expect the effect to be so good. This great heavenly cycle primordial array also had a spirit-gathering array. The two arrays perfectly merged into one. This kind of ability was not something an ordinary person could do. It was only under Caillou's guidance that Tang Zheng was able to do it so easily. "Hihi, Tang Zheng, what do you think? I didn't lie to you, right? My great heavenly cycle primordial array is not something an ordinary array can compare to," Caillou proudly said. "This is only on the surface. As for how strong its defensive power is, it still needs to be tested." Although Tang Zheng already believed Caillou's words, he could not help but strike a blow. Towards Caillou, he could not wantonly praise him. Otherwise, his tail would rise to the sky. Caillou heavily snorted a few times, but there was nothing he could do about it. When the others saw this scene, they all walked out of the house and suspiciously looked up. The light barrier and whirlpool in the sky had already become very faint. If one did not focus, they would not be able to see it clearly. Moreover, it was still becoming fainter. Everyone looked at Tang Zheng. Without a doubt, this scene was most likely caused by him. "Everyone, don't panic. I only set up a large array," Tang Zheng loudly explained. The people living here were all his own people, so he did not need to worry about speaking. Wu Junshan curiously asked, "What is the use of this array?" "It improves the air in this area and protects everyone." "Yi, you don't say. The air has really become fresh. It's like being in a mountain forest." Feng Xinyang took a deep breath and exclaimed. The others also noticed this, and their faces were full of surprise. This is only the beginning. The longer this formation operates, the better the air quality here will become, and it won't be affected by the outside world. "Sigh, the air quality in the capital is really bad. When will it be like here?" Yi Tianlei sighed with disappointment and frustration. Feng Xinyang glared at him and said, "You're the only one who cares about the country and the people." Tang Zheng smiled and said, "Uncle Yi, don't worry. In the near future, our air quality will become the same as in ancient times. No matter where we go, it will be like being in a mountain forest." He believed that the Tree of Life could do this. "I hope I can see it in my lifetime," Yi Tianlei said. Lan Yu retracted her gaze. The strange phenomenon in the sky had completely disappeared. The clouds were calm, as if nothing had happened. She asked, "You said that this formation can protect everyone, so it has a defensive ability. How strong is its defensive ability?" "Everyone can give it a try," Tang Zheng suggested. He also wanted to know how strong this primordial heavenly cycle array was. "All right, then let's give it a try." Everyone walked out of the array. Some people walked quickly, and when they reached the edge of the array, they were bounced back with a bang. "Yi!" The others looked at this scene in surprise. They knew that this was the effect of the array. This array doesn't only have a defensive ability against the outside world. Once the array is activated, even the people inside will leave. Tang Zheng explained. "Then isn't this very inconvenient? We'll be cut off from the world." Although it was only a step outside and they could see everything clearly, they couldn't leave at all. This array was a bit useless. Tang Zheng had already thought of this point, so he already had a countermeasure. He said, "These are some jade stones that I made. In the future, everyone who enters and exits the array must wear jade stones. The array will automatically recognize them. Without jade stones, there is no way for people to enter or exit. These jade stones are a type of identification tool." Tang Zheng spread out his hands. His palms were filled with sparkling jade stones. "I've also carved some small defensive formations into these jade stones. They can withstand a certain amount of attacks. They're equivalent to protective talismans." "That's great, then we'll accept it." Feng Xinyang took a piece of jade stone and played with it non-stop, as if she wanted to find some clues, but with her eyes, she couldn't find anything. She carefully wore it on her body and walked out of the array with large strides. She walked out of the formation safe and sound. She looked back and said happily, "It really worked." The others also took out the jade stones and wore them on their bodies. Sure enough, they could enter and leave freely. In this way, this area was equivalent to Tang Zheng's small kingdom. Outsiders had no way to enter or leave. Fortunately, this area was sparsely populated, and a few houses had already been bought by Tang Zheng. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy for him to do this. Right now, the people who lived here were all closely related to him. Other than his family, there were also the warriors of the witch clan. They were all on his side. You can try to attack the array from outside and see what effect it has. Tang Zheng reminded. Feng Xinyang couldn't wait any longer. She slapped the air with her palm. Although there was nothing, she felt a strong rebounding force. Peng, she was bounced back and flew far away. She staggered and landed on the ground. Feng Xinyang was very clear about her own strength. This palm strike was enough to split open a boulder, but she did not expect that it would still be bounced back. All of the force was used on her own palm. If not for her profound strength, she would have been injured by her own palm. When the others saw this scene, they understood the power of the array and stopped underestimating it. Lan Yu stood outside the array and held her breath. She channeled her power and pointed out a finger. A terrifying power burst out from her fingertip and directly tore through the air, fiercely striking the array. Boom! The array shook violently. A ray of light flashed and then quieted down. Lan Yu's attack still did not break the array. Her eyes could not help but reveal a strange look. The power of this attack was much stronger than Feng Xinyang's attack. She did not continue probing, but nodded in satisfaction. This array is indeed powerful. With the array's defense, at least the enemy will not be able to sneak attack us. This was the most important point. Facing a top-notch expert, this array would definitely not be able to block it. However, it could stall for time and even cause a huge commotion. This was enough for the others to rush over and provide support. Tang Zheng agreed, that makes sense. Just how strong of an attack can this array of yours withstand? Wu Junshan asked curiously. Tang Zheng was not in a hurry to answer because he did not know the answer himself. He could only ask Kaiyu. Kaiyu seemed to be a little angry because of Tang Zheng's distrust and deliberately did not say, "You can figure this out yourself." Tang Zheng helplessly shrugged and said, "We can only slowly figure this out. When the time comes and we meet the enemy, we will know." The others looked at each other, but this was not a big deal, so they did not bother with it. Everyone was not tired of moving around inside and outside the array. It was very refreshing. In the evening, when Yi Dingdang, Fang Sheshe, Liu Qingmai, and An returned, they were also very interested and excitedly moved around for a while before finally stopping. Yi Dingdang was dragged back by Feng Xinyang. It seemed that the mother and daughter were preparing to talk through the night again. At the same time, inside the palace, the lights were brightly lit. The bureau chief looked at the sect leader in front of him with a grave expression and fiercely slammed the teacup on the table. With a bang, he said with dissatisfaction, "Didn't you say that you were very powerful? How come you couldn't even kill one Ji Wuxiang and were saved by Tang Zheng in the end?" It was the bureau chief's order to get rid of Ji Wuxiang because Ji Wuxiang was the opponent's white glove. Getting rid of him would be a great help to the opponent. However, he did not expect that even the sect leader could not succeed. This made him very shocked and very angry. The sect leader's eyes were as calm as an ancient well.